again at the Whitecloak with our exclusive signature experience. Start with a full body exfoliation provided by expert estheticians, followed by a luxurious hair combing, deep condition, and blowout, finishing with a delicate manicure and complimentary comfort gown. Come, discover the new you in the way of the light.
Hey everybody, welcome. I'm super excited for this live stream that we're going to be having. This was a long time in the works. We got the Whitecloaks back together again. The whole band is back. So Kenny, Steve, good to see you again, gentlemen. I hope you guys are excited as I am. We're going to be testing all of our lore knowledge. We've got someone who's very, very confused about what the rules of the Wheel of Time are, and we're going to do our utmost to mansplain in the politest way possible as much as we can and help out our guest of honor. She's way more popular than us. I don't know if you guys know this, but like her channel is way bigger than ours. But we can help out best we can. But let's bring her on. The sword and the pen. Amber,
hey,
how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Really happy to be here. Hoping you can help me understand what the hell's going on.
We'll try. But just to highlight for everybody who's kind of watching, why did I bring this panel together specifically? Well, you guys all know Steve Sneed, our certified loser? Is that what you're saying? Okay. The self-deprecating Lord Captain Commander, the original Whitecloak subreddit.
One and only.
And man who's read the series probably as much as I have. And then Pixcalcis, Kenny, who in a community of devoted Wheel of Time fans just keeps proving over and over that nobody knows the series better than he does. I'm really excited to have you two here. Amber, I don't think you could find two better guys that know the series to answer your questions. But before we dive in, let's go through some of our chat comments and say hello to people who are here. So, Tel'aran'rhiod has been basically patiently waiting for more than half an hour for the stream to start. Didn't want to lose it. I see that Articus is here. He's saying "Let's go" or "Let's get it," and semi-sober. So this is a very, very good Belgian beer, but I'm nearly through it. But if I turn off my camera and go, you know where I'm going. Louise Sparrow is here. Hello, Louise. Good to see you. This idiot, he's here. Wait, that's
that dumbass. I hate that guy.
Lady Balefire. Hey, hoes. That's what she says. Yeah, no. Being nice. All right. Thanks, Lady B. Avenus, also Glad, one of the moderators on our Discord now, is here. Jack R, good to see you. Oh, really? It almost ruined my computer too, so I don't know if that's related. Kenny's here. That's the answer. Very good. See, the guy knows everything. All right. One of our original Whitecloaks, or John R, came on one of our when we were doing the Eye of the World. He was also a guest on one of our rewatches. So good to see you, John R. John Thomas is here. Spaced Oyster was also a guest on one of our rewatches. Staplebow, hey, Staplebow, the man who did more than anybody else to get all of our March Madness moments together. So that's Staplebow. Max is here. This is not Sneed's face reveal.
Yeah, that happened a while ago.
Happened a while. And someone also doxed the shit out of him on the subreddit as well. Yanan here. Good to see you, Yanan. Rafe will do what Kripke did in regards to time. Okay, this is a key point, guys, is Amber has seen up to book or read up to book 4 midway through it. So let's try and avoid spoilers. She doesn't know who Tylan is. So when we answer lore questions, we're going to obviously put in a lot of detail about what she's read up to and provide examples from the early books, but we're not going to get into plot or characters and stuff that comes later. We might talk conceptually about what happens. Will Richards is here. Let's go, boys. Pips. Yeah, maybe we could have brought. Maybe Pips will show up a little bit later, but he offered to moderate the chat. So if you give spoilers, he will put his hoof down. Jacob F is here. Trip. Hey, Pixie, Steve, and Amber. Okay, hey, Trip.
Hey, Trip.
Spaced Oyster again. Summit. Good to see you. Okay. Just lurking. Belmoradin still here. And yes, Steve was doxxed for hating Wheel of Prime. All right. I think we've gone through everybody who's here. We've got, I see on my other screen, 28 watching in chat. That's pretty high for us. But enough of me. I'm going to shut up for a while and drink my beer. I'm going to let Kenny and Steve answer Amber's first series of questions. And over to you, Amber. What's the very first pressing thing that you want to know about Wheel of Time?
I want to know what the hell is up with this shielding and being cut off and with the warder and the Aes Sedai, because it hasn't really been spelled out in a super clear way in the books, and the show has just confused the hell out of me. Like, did Lan feel like he was cut off when he was masked, not shielded, but masked? Like, because the show seems to be like, we don't want you to know if she's, if she's been cut off or if she's been, shielded or whatever the hell. But for him, being connected to her, with the bond, I was like, when he said that he had already been masked for months at a time, it sounded like when she got cut off from the one power, or I know that it wasn't because I've seen the end of season 2. It seems like there was no difference for him. Like, he stopped. It was almost the same exact thing for him as if she was dead. Is that what that is?
So what she did in season 1 was mask the bond, which basically just deadens the sense. Like, he can't tell where she is. Normally, a warder and Aes Sedai bond, you can tell like the direction each other's in. If you're close enough, you can feel their emotions. And if she masks that, it kind of just puts a damper on all that. And that's all she supposedly did in season 1.
But if she masked it and then died, would he feel her death? Or is it basically the same thing?
Yeah, he would, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. So then...
I should clarify here, Sneed hasn't watched season 2.
That's all right.
I watched part of it. I watched part of it.
I think he gave up. But what Amber's basically saying is they did a number on the shielding warder bond kind of mechanics in the show, and a lot of it's wrong.
What they did was they had Lan masked. So Moraine masks the bond, and then she goes off and she faces, in the end of season 1, the Dark One, but it's not him. And she thinks that she has been stilled. And Lan had no sensation or anything when that happened. So he finds her at the Eye of the World because he didn't go with her. And she's been stilled. And he's like, oh no, you poor thing. Then after that, he's convinced that she has not been stilled, but they don't explain how that happens, because it also seems like they're trying to hint that he feels no different from her. He feels no different than being masked. Like, if she is stilled, it feels exactly the same as him being masked. And I'm like, if that's the case, then if she died, wouldn't it feel the same way? Like, so masked is essentially like practicing if your Aes Sedai dies.
Well, no, it's
a
little confusing. But
yeah. Yeah, no.
So there is an instance of warder having their bond masked in the early books, and that's Thomas, because when Varen leaves the Aes Sedai to go join what ultimately becomes the Shienarans, Perrin and Matt, it's mentioned that Thomas was beside himself, kind of wondering where his Aes Sedai Varen went. And she masked the bond. So as Kenny was saying earlier, if the Aes Sedai does that, the warder can no longer find where their Aes Sedai is. It's mentioned a little bit later. This isn't a spoiler, but since you've you've read the third book, you know that there are 13 Dark Friend Aes Sedai, the Black Asha that leave. Some of them had warders. Some of those warders were not Dark Friends. So in order to avoid their warder hunting them down, they mask the bond to kind of escape.
That's not the same though as dying or being stilled. There is a critical difference. It's like dying or being stilled, you'll probably kill the warder if that happens. They'll know
happens later on in the books. There's an example of an Aes Sedai that gets stilled, and there are two warders. One of them dies instantly from that, and the other has the same kind of berserker rage and kind of goes off and basically fights himself to death because it's in the middle of combat. So us book readers, when we saw that and being like, okay, we kind of know that Moiraine can't be stilled in this instance because otherwise Lan would be dead. Even if the bond was masked at the time, it would effectively work exactly like the bond being snapped. And then sadly, the end, I don't know if we want to move on from the warder bond because there's a couple other things maybe that we could clarify, but we can also get into shielding and what those mechanics are too.
Yeah, because that's kind of what it leads into that next thing, because essentially she's not stilled and she's not dead, obviously. Turns out, she's just shielded and how do they describe it?
They said that
has been tied off. The weave was tied off. Like, is that a thing? That's a thing for sure. Like,
So here's the biggest. Sorry to steal any thunder here, guys, but that was one of the most egregious lore breaks of season 2, in my view, because tying off weaves is a rudimentary thing. Some of the very first weaves that you're introduced to in the Eye of the World were tied off weaves because that's what a ward is. Moiraine is not actively channeling when she's in Shatter Logoth. She set wards around the building they were in. She finished it up, she knotted it or tied it, and it's a persistent effect. She's no longer actively channeling into it. They set wards in season 1. Like Karenina, Kareni says, I set wards around the camp. So they've already established that they have tied off weaves. And now they did this kind of retcon being like, oh, you didn't know that weaves could be tied off? You were shielded the whole time.
It was really stupid because it doesn't even work as a mystery that gets solved, because you should, as the viewer, be able, and you shouldn't have to read the book, first of all, in order to enjoy the show. That otherwise it's just a bad show. But and it is. So it doesn't work as a mystery to be solved, because you get to the end and they're like, wait, it's been tied off. Oh my gosh, you mean like when you tie it off and walk away and it's still, holding you? Like, and we're like, there were no hints along the way. They just withheld that information from the audience. It does feel like retconning. It feels like they got to the end and were like, I don't know, what are we going to do? Like, let's just say it was tied off. Yeah. Okay. It was tied off. Like that.
Here's a fun one. If Moiraine didn't tie off the weave that sunk the Terran ferryman, then she actively murdered.
That's true. Yeah.
And use the one power as a weapon. Like, there's so much stuff. If this is what they're doing, that it basically wrecks inside their own show. But you're right. It was to do a cheap mystery to keep book readers guessing as well, because I had no idea what was going on. When she said in her letter that she's been stilled, I was like, okay, finally, she's been stilled. But how's Lan still alive?
Yeah. That was what I was like. If their bond is broken, because my impression is if the bond gets broken, which it would be if she's stilled, right? I was like, that should be the same as if she died, because he's no longer connected to her. So why isn't he going insane? And they just weren't giving enough information to tell the audience, like, what did they think happened? And then it's not clear if the other Aes Sedai know that Moraine's been stilled. Like, they seem to know sometimes, and sometimes they seem to not know. They were trying to keep the audience so in the dark so that we never really knew what was going on. But the thing is that's what science fiction and fantasy is for us science fiction and fantasy lovers. We like to see how the puzzle pieces fit together. We like to see that it all works, that you get to the end and you go, dang, somebody really worked hard on this to make sure that everything lines up. And we could have figured it out the first time if we were super smart, but the writer was more clever than we were. But now we can go back and read it again or view it again and enjoy it because we'll be like, oh, that was the hint I missed the first time or whatever. They're just withholding information and feeling like, oh, that makes us clever. The thing is, though, the audience could never guess because the information is not being given. So, sorry, sorry,
and
go ahead.
And it resolved with a major retcon that has like really bad implications. So I hope we clarified this for you. Like the show doesn't know what they're doing here.
Yeah. I knew that.
Well, but it's so much worse, right? Because if you just apply it backwards and be like, well, wait, no one did any kind of non-active channeling. Here's another example. Does that mean when Liandrin shields Egwene and Nynaeve and Elaine in the ways that she has to be actively channeling them against them the whole time? And wouldn't that bring in the Mean Girls wind to tell Liandrin that her cheekbones are a little bit too big?
The Shadar Logoth, I feel like the people who had to rewrite the scene, because obviously they had to not film it in season 1, right? And we're supposed to go, okay, so you can't channel when you get in. I don't know what was going through their mind, but how did they open the gate in this show in season 1?
Yeah, that's
Moiraine
another
had
kind
to
of
channel and open it, and I'm going, that's like a very basic rule that they established right away. You can't channel in the ways, because if you do, Machin Shin will come and beat your ass. And how do they get in? She channels and opens up the door. It's so frustrating because it is details like this that make you appreciate the work that goes into creating a fantasy story like this. It feels like the people who wrote this must be writing, I don't know, like a teen high school dramas or something, because they have no understanding of what the fantasy sci-fi genre is. This is it, or it's supposed to be it. This is why you needed Loyal. You needed Loyal who knew where the leaf is, or actually it was Moiraine who knew where the leaf was in the first Waygate, I think. But either way, you can't channel because he just broke the very first rule that I can't channel in there. Machin Shin will be drawn to us.
So like, Loyal knows where to go within the ways. He can
read the guideposts is what it is he can read the language.
But if the Ogier needed someone to channel to open the Waygate to begin with, why did they have Waygates at all their steading? And at the groves in the that's kind of what's undermined. I should highlight here that LPK Lewis Perrin Kinslayer is perhaps a moment to discuss the ways in its ties and origin to Saidin. We can do that.
Okay, go ahead.
But you caught almost immediately that Moiraine opening the Waygates undermined Loyal simply for being there, first and foremost. There's other things that they undermined with the ways, like not being able to take horses one season and then having horses the second season. That it looked like, I think you said, a Giant's Causeway. It looked to me like a Star Trek Voyager set. But this was it was the easiest layup for them to basically have a very dark setting, because that's how it's described. Like, you can't see 6 feet in front of you. So, all right, just do the Gandalf and Moria type of scene where it's just, now we're going through the long dark. It could be very haunting and ominous, and you don't need to build a complicated set for that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that kind of stuff. I'm okay with the special effects not being great and sets not being super spectacular if the writing is good and if their budget was small. But neither of these, the writing was not good and the budget was huge. So there's no excuse for a lot of this stuff. And everyone's like, oh, it was COVID. And I'm sorry, it's Amazon. Recast your Matt and just move on with it. Move on with the show, recast Matt. That would have been so much better than whatever the hell it is that they did. But
they ran to the Faldara Waygate, even because they had to. But the other Waygate at the Eye of the World, and why would there be a Waygate at the Eye of the World, makes no sense either. But that was a day ahead, and then it only took them a day in the real world to get there. So
yeah, like less than a day. Oh, dude, that bugged me so much in that. I was, yeah.
Not the one thing that really bugged me in season 2 though is when they mentioned the Ogier steading in Kyrian, and it's just like no, it was an Ogier grove in the city. Like the Ogier built the cities and they built groves for themselves. If there was a steading in the middle of the city, no Aes Sedai would go there.
Is that what they? I don't remember that line, and it didn't stand out to me. But now it would, because I know what a steading is, because we just went to one in the book. Right. I'm in book 4, chapter. I just finished 20 in the reread. I've actually read up to where Perrin goes back to the 2 rivers, but that was a while ago. And now I'm doing a reread, and I'm at chapter end of 20. So we got Nynaeve and all those guys are on the boat with Tom.
Right. Let's ask Amber another lore question, and I'm going to try and let you boys answer it instead of interjecting myself again. So I hope we've explained a little bit about shielding, stilling, the water bond, and how that all got messed up. We talked a little bit about the waygates, but what's the next pressing question that you got?
Shoot, I just had it in my head. It was oh my gosh, I feel so dumb. It was right as we were talking. I was like, I've got a million questions. Okay. The teleport. There are different kinds of teleporting, sort of, in this book. There's the waygates is one thing, and then you've got the portal stones, and then the dream world, I'm still not 100% clear on what it is exactly, because it looks like, the portal stones, I think I figured out. You go into a portal stone and you are essentially transported to an alternate universe. Am I right?
Yep.
Okay. How is that determined? Like, let's just focus on the portal stones first. How is it determined which alternate universe you go into? And is that controllable?
It is controllable. The portal stone itself, if it wasn't weathered and beaten up and you could actually see it, like I think they could see it when they actually go to the mirror dimension or the alternate dimension. There's a grouping of symbols, and those symbols, you kind of match them up and it determines where you go. Because Varian shows Rand like the symbol for their world. And so using that, he's able to teleport from one place to the other. But it is, you choose where you want to go based on those symbols. And I'm sure it doesn't encompass all possible worlds or anything, but I guess it's the ones they've mapped out, whoever made the portal stones. It's like a smattering of those. But
and there's an example early in the Shadow Rising when Rand is going to channel the whole group of Aiel to Rereading, and they basically toss a coin. Or Matt tosses the coin about, well, which one is the actual symbol or world, and they basically bet the fate of the universe on it. But because it's Matt, of course, it works. So the portal stones give you kind of all the worlds in between. And what I always liked about this bit of world building that Robert Jordan does, because he knows quantum mechanics and he knows physics. He's got this kind of very interesting concept of, if the Dark One wins in one of these worlds, he wins in all. But if he's defeated in one of these worlds, he's defeated in all. So it's quasi paradoxical, and there's an element of, the further that these alternate worlds get from your own, like the more faded or outlandish it seems. So the one where Selene and Huron and Loial and Rand are traveling together, and they find a monument where Arthur Hawkwing must have lost, because it's a Trolloc monument, and they don't see any people because it's all depopulated. That is a world that's beginning to fade because it's outside of said reality. So, but it doesn't really get explored a lot more, these portal stones, after the early books, because there's other methods of traveling coming up.
Okay. So the portal stones, because my next question was, does time work differently within them? Because it seems like they are able to travel much further. It's a portal stone, so you're going to another universe, but it also seems like you can travel in a portal stone and get much further more quickly than you would in the world you exist in.
Or the opposite. It could take you home.
Yeah, or the opposite. Yeah. In the Great Hunt, it takes them like the same amount of time also to go from Tallman Head to Tallman Head. It takes like about the same amount of time it would have taken
about
them.
6 months. And the other thing that goes haywire in the Tallman Head traveling is they all kind of live a multiple lives.
Yeah, that was another question. Like, so there's so many things that happen with these portal stones, and it hasn't even been in the show. So I'm more familiar with the show, sadly, than I am with the book. So sometimes I'm like, I'm not sure where I'm picking up these rules or if I'm remembering things properly from the books. I'm just doing a very casual read through with the books to make this comparison. But the portal stones, okay, so you say that they're really important in the first few books and then not really explored ever after, or why would they not be more important? I'm wondering, because I would be like, hell, portal stones, like
I think it's because the only people that know how to use them and can use them would be people who have other ways of traveling around, basically.
Yeah, so this has already been hinted at. So it's not fully a spoiler, but in the prologue, the initial prologue, Dragon Mount, it's mentioned that Lewis Theron traveled from his location with a capital T. So this is when he's in the castle confronting Ishamael, or the Betrayer of Hope, and then he travels to a new location. That's where he raises up Dragon Mount.
Okay.
What it's basically telling you is that the Aes Sedai in the Age of Legends can basically teleport. And what gets revealed, like this is why Selene pops in and out, or Lanfear does, kind of at will. They know how to kind of move almost infinite distances at will. And you saw that in the show too, where Selene basically takes Rand out of the ways. Although, correct me if I'm wrong, Kenny, should Lanfear be able to travel like that from the ways back into the world? It's never comes up.
I
mean, yeah, it's not like the power doesn't work in the ways. It's unpredictable sometimes.
It's more about how you have to know your location in order to do that. But that's a side thing.
Okay, I guess that.
But Amber, that would be the explanation. Is so by the time that we get into later book 4 and book 5, this knowledge comes back to our characters, at least the ones that are powerful enough to use it, and they rediscover kind of the ways to travel with a capital T. And there's a slight different nuanced one called skimming, but you'll get into that as well, kind of especially towards the end of book 4.
Okay, so coming up.
So they don't need the portal stones to travel anymore.
Okay, I mean, it sounds like, because when they went through the portal stones, it wasn't to get to the steadings, it was after that. Wasn't it? Okay, it doesn't matter. Either way, the flicker part, that one. Okay. Yeah.
There just happened to be a portal stone by Steading Shangtai.
Yeah,
and then Vera notes like, oh, Tavir in effect, like whatever you need, it's like right in front of you.
But so for that, I was wondering, okay, so you can also experience your alternate lives. Matt comes out of that and seems to be able to speak the old tongue. I don't recall him speaking it before that. Am I remembering wrong? He did?
Wait, he did a few times, yeah.
Okay, then I forgot it.
In the first book, when they are battling, this is right before they go to Shadow Logoth, when they have their first kind of fight encounter. Perrin cries Manetheren, Rand picks up that call as well, and then Matt shouts out like in the old tongue, for the honor of the Red Eagle, and he does like the ancient war cry of Manetheren. And then Tom, they even note that when they're in Shadow Logoth, being like, holy crap, maybe it's Matt they're after, because he was spouting off this stuff, and maybe he's like the king of Manetheren reborn or something like that. And Tom says, don't even say that kind of stuff because it can happen.
So, okay.
Oh, here we go. Yanan's on it right there. Karai am Kaldazar, Karai am Alasanda. We got a bunch of nerds here, Amber. Don't worry. And holy crap, 40 watching. Awesome.
By the way, Yanan, I'm so sorry. I think I mispronounced your name when I did a shout out to you in one of my, because you became a Hobbit tier patron, and I said Janan. I'm sorry. Or maybe you guys are saying it wrong.
That's entirely possible. The only thing I know for sure is it's Shadar Logoth, not Shadar Logoth.
Shadar Logoth. Oh, I say it wrong. I'm sorry.
No, but
the
show did it wrong, and the show's the first time you heard it. Shadar Logoth. Shadar Logoth is not
Shadar Logoth. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of answered a little bit about portal stones and traveling. What's the next thing that we can help you with that's got you confused?
It's kind of a similar thing. That triptych that Moraine used to go and bang her girlfriend.
Oh God.
No idea. No one knows.
Yeah,
No one knows
there's
what that is.
Maybe a Ter'angreal. That doesn't make any sense though. I don't know.
And they used it to like go down by the river, like not even anywhere far. So
But, especially when they're in like rooms down the hall from each other.
Yeah.
There are some theories here, Amber. If you guys don't mind me taking this one, because oh God, this ruins so much of the show. Or sorry, so much of the lore. And people who are new to the world, like Amber was, like pointed it out. It's like, why didn't Moraine pack this on her horse? It could be pretty useful to like travel different places. The last place you would have a traveling Ter'angreal. And that's potentially what it is, Amber, that this Ter'angreal allows you to create the weave to travel between set locations or whatnot.
Okay.
It's ambiguous whether or not that's what it is, or whether it's a portal into the world of dreams.
That's what I figured it was. Is like, because they never make it clear whether there's even like an actual outside. I mean, they don't go anywhere; they're just in the hut. So I kind of figured, oh, is this just like a little like pocket universe with just this hut? Like,
and if it was a portal to the world of dreams, that also explains why Moraine's not carrying it around with her, using it to travel in the real world, because it's not real world traveling; it's going into the dream world potentially. But that's still inexcusable, because that's a very handy thing to have with you, because even if it's only sending you into the world of dreams to meet someone, as you see in the books, probably going forward,
you can find stuff.
Elaine and Nynaeve go off to Tanchico, but they start communicating with Egwene, who's off in the waste, and they're sharing information via the world of dreams. So instead of Moraine having to send messages to Swan about the mission, like they could be meeting up in the dream world if she only carried this thing with her. But yeah.
Then they should have been able to plan like a better way to trick everybody into not thinking that they were, colluding together. I don't know.
Yeah, that particular one is egregious. At the very worst, we think that was a traveling Ter'angreal. The most generous will say that could be a kind of a portal into the world of dreams. But I mean, what is it, guys? She physically she leaves her room. So she physically goes somewhere else, whether or not it's to Tel'aran'rhiod or down to the love hut in Tyr. Oh God, I don't even want to think. What's chat saying about it? Thanks, Pip. Okay, I don't know. 43 watching, and only 27. Thanks, Lady Balefire. We're gonna get it. Will has said here, best evidence for being World of Dreams is that they went to Swan's childhood home.
Okay.
Worst case scenario is that it's nothing else. That it's nothing else like the World of Dreams. But Will makes a good point. Would they have reconstituted Swan's burned down hut just so that they could go in there and bang in real life? Or is this a dream shard or something like that? But
I wouldn't put past the show Aes Sedai to do anything. I mean, they'll do anything.
Oh, that's right. It's called the Love Shack. Yeah. Did we make a video with that song, Pips? I can't recall. Maybe somebody did. Good old days. Okay. Any further things we can confuse you on, Amber? Okay,
so now we're just gonna like take the next step into dream stuff, okay? Because we got dreams, and I'm still not clear exactly how the dream world works, but I have a theory, and I just want to say it, and maybe you guys can hint if I've got it right or wrong, because I was trying to figure out how the hell does this make sense, that you can like reach out to other people, you can find where people and things are, whatever. It's like a network, and I'm like, oh, maybe it's like a spiritual matrix where everybody can they all load into it at night when they're sleeping, and that would explain why you can create things there. You can connect with other people and all this good stuff. However, the whole if you die in the dream world, it's basically like one of those, you die in the dream world, you die in real life kind of things. So I'm going,
except if you're Rand and you need to wake in the harakiri yourself.
well, yeah. So okay, so you got that, but the wolves can go in there. Can other animals go in there too?
I'm gonna give this. Should we give it to Kenny, Steve, or do you want to answer this one?
Yeah. No, Kenny can take this.
Wild animals are in the dream. Domesticated animals are not, for whatever reason. But you do see other animals. Like you saw the guy shooting. Was it?
She must. I don't think she's got. I don't think she's gotten to Slayer yet.
No. When they first get to the when they first get to the two rivers, does Perrin go into the wolf dream then, and see someone shooting things in the wolf dream?
I don't think I've gotten to that part yet.
She's not there, so we can't really. But the wolves are out in the dream hunting. Right? So coming up, Amber, there's going to be a lot of Perrin and the wolf dream.
Okay.
And you get a lot of Tel'aran'rhiod in book 4 in particular. I think the key thing to note is Tel'aran'rhiod is the one world that's a constant in every reality. So it's like the glue that binds kind of everything together.
Well, wait. Is it between dimensions as well? So you could technically meet a different Egwene than the one that's from your dimension?
If they both wanted to Tel'aran'rhiod at the same time, but that never really comes up in the book series. So that would be kind of a big hypothetical. But I'm just going back to kind of Varen's lore that she's imparting to Egwene and giving her a list and essentially what Tel'aran'rhiod is. But I think story-wise, it serves the purpose of it. It's an avenue for the characters to communicate with each other. Egwene definitely gets a lot of quasi-prophecies from her visions as a dreamer. And there's other kind of fun stuff and plot. Like it's a good way, you'll find this, for the Forsaken to meet up with each other. Because you see that in the
they've done that in the show. They've done that in the show so far. I have yet to see it in the book.
No, I think in the third book, there's some where particularly Perrin is seeing people and not knowing who they are, but the plots that the characters are talking about. And it's only... Does it
ever jump into the perspective of the Forsaken?
In a later book, yes.
Okay.
Eventually,
gotcha. Because that was what I meant. Is I was like, I don't recall us being in... Like, we're definitely supposed to be in the heads of... not Lanfear. What's the guy? The weird face guy from season 1 finale. Oh my gosh, come on. Shamael. Yes, thank you.
Balsamon.
Yes, well, Shamael. But he and Lanfear kind of have, we follow them in episode 5 of the second season. Like almost they are characters, protagonists that we're sort of following. So I was wondering, do we go into the heads of the Forsaken in the books? And it sounds like we do. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Not Bilal. Bilal is like he's the Sean Bean of Wheel of Time.
Okay.
He's on screen for a bit and then he gets bail fired.
Is there any other ones that we...
He's only in the third book, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's like right at the end of the third book. I was kind of like, did I miss this bad guy? So, yeah.
High Lord Saimon. Come
on. What did you say, Sneed?
Oh, I was wondering if there was other ones that we don't see their perspective, and it's not important.
Spoiler. Okay. All right. So then,
did we answer anything? Maybe you still have some lingering questions about Tel'aran'rhiod, but ask away.
Sort of, but I guess the last thing that I have about Tel'aran'rhiod is, and it's about the wolf thing. Okay, since other animals wild animals can go in there. Are there people who can do the same thing that's happening to Perrin, like becoming a wolf brother, but with other creatures?
Not that shows up in the series.
So. Yeah,
so
I don't think so. I think generally it's like it's supposed to be kind of like men and wolves are so connected. That's why that works. Like maybe in some distant past, that was something like all men could do, and it's kind of just popping back up again. I don't think it never mentions that you could do it with other animals, and I don't think it's supposed to be that you can.
Okay. I was like, then why the wolf? But I guess, okay, if it's like, because wolves eventually became dogs and they're like the most integrated animals of all. So makes sense. And if it's not domesticated animals, it has something to do with before the domestication. So I can accept that. See, like the logic is there. Makes sense.
It's a pure fantasy thing. I think people have kind of noted that it's like wolves have a special place as like the animal in fantasy lit.
They do.
As far as what we know. So I think that's kind of ultimately what it's going for. But yeah, no other characters that have a different animal in Tel'aran'rhiod. And Kenny, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't see too many other animals other than wolves in Tel'aran'rhiod. Like they might exist because
you do. Amis is hunting one when she meets a Gwyn. She's hunting like a lizard or something. The lizard actually almost attacks a Gwyn.
Is that right before they make it to the? Right.
That's when she tells her you got to come to Rereading.
Yeah.
I always thought that was a hyena.
It's a lion.
Is it a lion?
Oh, okay. Well, I would. Okay. Yeah, I haven't. It's something. It's some kind of animal that.
That if Gwyn doesn't know, and since we're in her perspective, it's kind of ambiguous. But all right, Kenny says it's a lion. I know enough to basically say, yeah, he's right.
Okay, this went over. So they don't have lions then in the Wheel of Time world. What is the name of the Wheel of Time world anyway? What's the name of the world?
Randland.
Randland. Just the world.
The map that you get, you call Randland. Then to one side, you got the Aiel Waste. Beyond that is Shara. And then there's
no. What's the whole like planet Earth? What is Wheel of Time world?
There's no name.
Okay.
Never comes up. Yeah.
Gaia. All right. So this just popped into my head, but because I just got through that chapter in Shadow Rising. It's like Rising Shadow. It's not Rising Shadow. Sorry, I bumped my mic. They don't know what silkworms are.
No.
So there are some creatures but they have silk.
Comes from somewhere else.
Silk comes from Shara. So so it's basically taking the old Marco Polo story, right? Of like Europeans didn't know how silk was made. They had competing theories, but that's what everybody wanted. And it came from the Far East. Very similarly in the Wheel of Time, you've got one country in particular that got rich off of the trade between Randland and Shara, and that was the Cairhienin. And it's because they got passage through the waste. The Aiel didn't attack them.
Okay.
So this was, you should know enough kind of by now, kind of who the Aiel like and who they don't like anybody.
Yeah.
But they tolerate gleemen. They tolerate peddlers. They avoid the Tuatha'an.
I know why. So that's no worries there.
For a long time, for about 500 years, Kenny, or so. Once they found out who the Cairhienin were, and because all those Aiel clan chiefs had those same kind of visions, they realized the Cairhienin were the one people that gave them water on their long journey. And for that, they brought them kind of the offering of the Tree of Life and gave them passage to cross the waste unmolested so that they could trade with the distant land of Shara and get
Dain, has this come up yet in the Shadow Rising?
Yeah.
Some of this stuff? By the time Perrin's gone to...
We're putting it together, but essentially it should already be established that this is where the silk and things come from. And this is...
Yeah, no, but I'm talking about like the ale and that kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure that happens a little later. Doesn't it?
The Aiel? You mean...
Yeah.
So I had a couple things spoiled for me when Rand... I know Rand is going to go to the Aiel and he learns the secret of the Aiel origins. Like those are a few things because sometimes people write them in my comments, and I read all my comments, like every single one of them.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's happened, but I kind of could see it coming too. So it feels like everybody is going there.
I thought you've gone through the visions in Rereading already, or am I?
I read because I didn't know what the hell they were talking about, and I did read the lizard people thing with Matt.
Okay, so yeah. Okay, maybe I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but
I need like an outline of what happens in the chapters because I might have actually read further than I think. It's just like for some reason, Perrin arriving at the Two Rivers was the thing that stuck out to me. I was like, I think I got that far, so I might actually be further than that.
I might be misremembering because I think once Perrin gets to the Two Rivers, maybe there's a break and you go back to the Aiel Waste and you see all this Rand stuff, and then right after that, Perrin might be in the kind of middle of his campaign fighting to free the Two Rivers of the Trolloc and the Whitecloak threat. So apologies if I've spoiled anything.
I don't think so, because I think there was a lot of stuff in the fourth book that was spoiled to me. So, I actually am okay with spoilers this early in the story. It would suck if I get like some really big thing from really far ahead. That would be terrible. But like I'm okay.
I don't think this is super significant, but it's a fun little piece of world building that essentially the Aiel gave a peace offering to the Cairhienin, and it was a sapling. And what gets noted very early in the book series, when Tam al'Thor is having his fever dream, actually, he mentions that Laman, the king of Cairhien, cut down the tree to make a throne. And that's what precipitated the Aiel War. So that peace offering of a sapling, grows into a tree. He cuts it down to make a throne for himself, pisses off the Aiel, and that's kind of what does the Aiel War. And now the Cairhien are no longer persona non grata, and they don't actually have the trade anymore across the Aiel Waste. So the only people who get ivory and silk now are the sea folk.
Okay.
So it's ocean-borne trade that does it. So that minor, but it's fun world building, essentially.
Okay, gotcha. Do we want to move to a different subject or?
All up to you, Amber. We're here just to answer questions and mansplain.
Okay, well, actually, is there... I just want to ask you guys, the lore people, in season... Because I know you haven't seen season 2 Sneed, correct?
Yeah, parts. I've seen parts of it.
Oh, you've seen... Okay, what would you say is, apart from the fact that they still have not explained that Saidin and Saidar are different... Because that's a big one. Everybody that was in like 2 seconds. They spoiled this whole deal. What would you say is the biggest screw up with the most consequences coming up in the story that they have done? And also not a taint of the it's Saidar. All right, Saidar has been tainted.
Saidin.
It's Saidin.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, because Rand reaches for Saidin. Okay, yeah.
I would say, why didn't Paden Fane blow the horn, or like why do they all end up on? I haven't seen the show. Maybe they explain it, but he meets Ishmael, and in the beginning of the season, he should have the horn by then. Like, how does he end up? How do they end up getting the horn if they've already lost the horn? I guess. Because in the book, he can't open the box it's in until by the time he gets the High Lord is the one who opens the box.
But
he opens the box like right away in the show, and then he's the next thing we see, he's with the big bad guy, but then it's like, why? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
And there's other stuff involved with that Paden Fane thing, most notably the Myrddraal being crucified. With Paden Fane being on Team Dark One, whereas in the books he's kind of
on his own. He's a rogue.
On his own, right? And this is why when the Shienarans are chasing Paden Fane and the Horn, why they're changing direction every day, is because early on in the day, like the Myrddraal has reasserted itself and trying to drive them back towards the Blight, and then Paden Fane kind of takes over and drives them a different direction. And then after the crucifixion scene, that zigzagging kind of stops, and they're just like straight on chasing Padan Fain. But yeah, when they change Padan Fain's character to not be kind of the crazy schizophrenic, part Mordeth, part Dark One's Hound, they wrecked all kinds of plots with him. So, and important ones too.
We have yet another portal type thing that just popped into my head. The Fades can travel through shadow. Correct. And then this seems to be like they did it right in the show, I think. They just didn't explain it. So when they're traveling through the shadows, nobody has explained that they can travel through the shadows. You're like, what the hell's going on? How many of these things are there? Anyway, but all right, I just wanted to double check with that and make sure. Okay. Let's see. What were we just talking about? We're talking about
you're asking us
what was the most egregious
lore? So I'm interested to hear Kenny's.
Man, I don't even know. Maybe
could we give you a top 5?
Maybe I'd say one of them is probably their framing of the end of season 1 with the flashback, where it's like the Dark One was not freed from a prison; he just is there.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, I think that has major ramifications if they decide to go with that and not kind of retcon what they had Lews Therin say. But the Dark One being kind of like, it seems like not a war-torn society, and the way he phrases it is the Dark One's just there and they're trying to cage him versus, reseal the prison. Like, it's kind of different framing. So that would be a big one, I think.
Yeah.
Because that'll come up in the future, that this is a big deal, that this didn't happen. Okay.
And there's other stuff that we could point to. So the character that Lews Therin speaks to in that cold open, she's not in the book series, but there was a short story that Robert Jordan wrote, which is kind of like a history fragment that was found in the White Tower, kind of explaining the War of Power and what happened. I don't think this is any type of spoiler, but in broad strokes, it's like, all right, the Dark One was freed from kind of a man's mistake. They were searching for a new form of power that men and women could use together because they felt that they were constrained by having separate powers. But it basically precipitated this whole War of the Shadow. And then there were competing strategies amongst the forces of the light in how best to deal with it. And the men and the women didn't agree. And Lews Therin was so headstrong, he had his way. It was going to be his way or the highway. And ultimately, that Latra lady, who's not the Amerlin, Cedar, Tamerlin, like that was Lews Therin, but she basically said, no, we're having none of it. So if you do your plan, you're not doing it with the women. And what's left open is whether or not, had Lews Therin had the women on his side, that they would have succeeded in successfully sealing the Dark One away. Or, thank goodness the women didn't join, because had they done so, both sides of the one power, male and female, could have been exposed to the Dark One's taint. And both men and women would have gone insane from touching it. That's kind of what they leave open. It's a very, very cool short story, but at the end of the day, I think what Kenny's going for is that Lews Therin's a tragic figure. He's not the dipshit that he's made out to be in the show.
Okay. I don't think we heard from you, Sneed. Most.
Oh,
should I call you Sneed or Steve?
Either works. I don't
Okay.
care.
Right.
I guess I didn't watch enough of the second season to really know too much.
That's okay. Whatever you got from the first season's fine too.
Why was she able to bring people back to the dead?
Oh, that's
kind of the big one. Because that was the one that, like, it was like, why was Egwene able to bring Nynaeve back from the dead?
Oh,
because I was watching with my parents and they're like, oh, well, she could just bring everybody back then. So it's like, well, everybody is going to see it that way. And I don't.
That's how Loyal and Uno came back for season 2, right?
Must be.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that to me, all right. That's like one of those things again where it feels like the people who wrote this do not have experience in science fiction or fantasy, because these are the things that, you know, as a successful sci-fi or fantasy writer, you cannot do that. You cannot have somebody capable of resurrecting another character, because then it undermines every death that's going to happen from here forward. And yeah, why didn't she resurrect the others? It's like, oh, she didn't know how to do it. She just, it spontaneously came out of her. Sort of like how Nynaeve spontaneously healed everybody after the attack or whatever. Like, she didn't seem to know what she was doing, and she still was able to do it, which then I'm going, do you need to be taught how to use the one power? Or can you just do it?
Yeah.
Oh, we can answer that a little bit. So here's a fun thing about power levels, and you might not appreciate this yet, Em. Robert Jordan apparently assigned a power level to like every Aes Sedai character that he wrote, which is like, was it 1,500 of them? Like, there's 3,000 plus named characters in the series. There's hundreds of Aes Sedai, but he basically gave them a level from like 1 to 72, and how strong they were. And based on that, there are other things that fall out. So the stronger you are, the more likely you are to be kind of a natural, to be able to do things either spontaneously without learning them, or what's kind of key is that characters like Egwene and Elaine, because they're at the higher end, they are very quick learners. So Egwene and Elaine can see people do a weave once and they'll get it almost instantly.
They established that with Nynaeve, but not with Egwene yet. Egwene didn't know how to do anything. And she was making life harder for herself by like refusing
in the show, and she didn't even channel for 6 months. And then what did Alex basically said? She has a Kenny Powers moment where she's like, doesn't want to use her hands because like talent is a crutch or whatever for the week. I don't know what the hell's the
well, they didn't explain that, because I'm like, why didn't she use her hands? But they didn't explain, like, you know, oh, if I use my hands even once, I won't be able to stop. Like, I'll always have to use my hands. They didn't explain that. So I'm sitting there going, like, what a dumbass. Like, just because it's hard to do with your hand, like easier to do with your hand. How about do it with your hands? And then you can go, oh, I get the feel of how it works. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it without my hands. I'm going to make it more challenging for myself. But she wasn't even able to get to step 1 of what it even feels like to channel, because she was doing this and they just didn't explain it. I'm going, you guys are morons. Or she was a moron. And then the next thing we know, she's like blasting a firewall between Liandrin and the exit. And I'm like, wait, so you're skilled enough to channel a wall of fire on the other side of a person in just a doorway. So that seems like it would take skill. Like, you would have to learn how to do that sort of thing, unless you don't, and you just can magically do it. And since we hadn't seen her do anything spectacular with channeling before that, it was like, oh, you went from nothing to this.
The hands thing, I'm going to claim that as the thing that bugs me the most, because they even chopped off a lady's hands in the first season to burn her at the stake, and then had the same character who was doing that basically explain several episodes later that, I know you don't need your hands to channel. And it's just like, well, then why'd you cut off her hands and burn her at the stake? Like, she didn't need it. Then how did you burn her?
Why do they make such a big deal in the show about the hands? That comes up like once in the books. It's like a throwaway line. Like,
it's a red herring.
So what it ultimately is that Aes Sedai who learn the weaves, like, it's kind of a crutch, or it's a mental aid. I get it now. Yeah, in the first book, Moraine has a staff through most of the first book. And Egwene even notes, like, your staff must be powerful. And she's like, no, this is just, it's an assist. Yeah. And once the staff gets busted in black, she never brings it back and whatnot. But it gets established a little bit later that Aes Sedai can recognize who taught who particular weaves by how they move their hands about. And when you meet some of the Aiel who can channel, the wise ones, like Amis, who you might have met already in the dream world, they kind of ridicule the Aes Sedai for basically doing their flashy motions because they don't do that. It's not needed. It's kind of a crutch, but it's not really that well established that if your hands are bound that you can't channel. It's just it's more difficult. Like, once you learn in a particular way, you kind of like to do it that way. But to make this a more central plot point in the TV show than, I don't know, Rand going into Tremoncian and seeing the Choden Call. That's mind-boggling to me.
Well, they're setting it up so Egwene has a power moment where she can't use her hands and is gonna one up them because she can channel without using her hands. She's gonna be tied. Her hands are gonna be tied up or something, and she's gonna have some power moment. It's something to prop Egwene up in season 3. It's gotta be.
I'm also gonna say this right now because I've said this 1,000 times on the rewatch. I really hate the ring pops. I really hate the rings and that
the
they
giant
all got
rings?
that they've got a colored gem in them, and that the accepted have got like no gem in them, because it's a key plot point, at least in the early books, that Egwene, Nynaeve, and Elaine all go around pretending to be Aes Sedai because they have the ring. And yeah, in the show, they would need to have a gem in there in order to pass for a full sister. So
that's true. Yeah.
Pops. Yeah. Oh well. Sorry, I took 2. Amber, let's get back to answering a question from you.
I'm just going to note that I just remembered while we were talking about her that she doesn't channel with her hands at Liandrin, but the next scene after that, she is with the arches and she is using her hands. And I'm like, so if you use your hands at all after you've learned to do it not with your hands, is like you're okay? Like, how does that work? It's so bonkers. Like the rules are broken. There's like, we're going to tell you, here's what the rule is, and then we're going to ignore it. And then we're going to talk about how this rule is so important. And I'm going.
And how does she even know what to channel into the arches? Like
that was another.
She just does something. Like, how does she know what to do with that?
She's never seen them used ever. And okay, how about this? People who can channel, women who can channel, can sense other women who can channel, and men with men. But then you see Logain can see what's her face channel, right? And later in the series,
we're going to give this one to Kenny.
We've got so in the finale, Kenny, I guess you've seen it all, but Sneed, you have not. Or I'm Pixcalcis, whatever. Okay, Kenny and Steve. At the end of season 2, none of the women can see what Logain had, or what Ishamael has done to what's her face, Moraine.
Moron. We call her Moron, or at least I do. In the it seems to be more apropos.
Yeah. She needs a different word, because I wouldn't even say she's a moron. She is in some ways. But anyway, so she, nobody can see that she's been tied off, and nobody can see that she can't channel. Oh my gosh, it's just so, but they need Rand to, like, who can channel, like, look at her and go, oh, you've been tied off. Like that, he's able to tell her, like, you've been tied off. Like, that's how they find out what has happened to Moraine, and then he's gonna.
It's Lan who knows and tells Rand to put on his Saidin goggles.
Yes, that's it.
In order to see kind of what the issue is. But Pixcalcis, Kenny, do you want to maybe give Amber a high-level overview about mechanically what the differences are between Saidin and Saidar? So with the glow, the sensing of weaves, the strength of weaves versus using multiple weaves at the same time, or different flows. Like, just give her, because this is a wonderful part of the book series, is essentially just how gendered the magic system is within, where Saidin really emphasizes masculine aspects, or what are traditional masculine aspects and strengths, but Saidar does it as well for feminine strengths.
Yeah. So like the Saidar, they can sense each other's ability to channel. They can sense each other actively channeling by a glow, and then they can link and add their powers together. Whereas the men cannot sense another man's ability to channel. Like they can, but it's a process. Like you can't just walk up to another guy and say, "Oh, he can channel." You have to actually do a test. But you can tell if another man is channeling.
Okay.
So like if they're both holding the power.
Well, if there's a big magic fight, the two men can see the weaves coming at each other. So that much is similar.
Yeah, and like if two men are holding the power, they both know the other's holding the power. Like they can sense how much that guy's holding, Saidin and whatnot. But yeah, they can't just know that another man's channeling just walking down the street like the women can. In the show, it seems like, yeah, they're subverting that. They're giving Logain the ability that women should have, where he can see a glow around people that can channel. And then they're acting like women can't sense other women that can channel, except for a couple Damani who they say they've got a couple Damani that can sense women that can channel. So that's how they know to pull them from a crowd.
Yeah,
and it should just be something that all women should be able to do.
They say that the Damani have a talent, or some of them have a talent in order to sense it. But let's back up and also note that the entire Shan-Chan system of finding women who can channel and leashing them is predicated upon the ability to sense the or at least test and find that ability in other women. So yeah, removing that I think is a bit of a world breaking. Well, I guess if they have the IDOM, maybe not. They'll just test and see if it works. But
and they've got the Damani that can test it. So they've got their little 2 or 3 people that can look.
I thought for the longest time that the pacifier that they were wearing was like a Ter'angreal that let them sense the ability in other women. But no, it's just like they put that in there for no reason, and then Egwene spat it out in like a fit of something. Oh God. Okay. Sorry to steal your. I'm gonna drink some more. All right. If you don't mind, I'm going to elaborate a little bit about some of the gender differences in the magic system for you, Amber, because I really think that this is one of the real strengths of the book series.
Okay.
But through 14 books plus, almost every time it's mentioned, a man seizes Saidin and a woman embraces Saidar.
I picked up on that when the girls were testing Rand. Well, not testing him, but they're like, why don't you, try to channel and we'll see, essentially they were trying to teach him how to channel and they couldn't. And then when he does, they couldn't see how he did it. I kind of figured from that it's a different technique altogether.
But it's very alien to each other, and it's a wonderful metaphor for the gender differences. The man has to seize control, and they basically need to rule the power in order to do stuff. And sorry if this sounds sexist, but the way that the women control the power is to surrender to it. I think it's mentioned in a couple metaphors, and in fact, this is where the Egwene floating down the river in the very first episode, where this comes from. You see Egwene gets thrown off. She's in the river. And if she struggles against the current, she'll drown or she'll bash on the rocks or whatnot. But she intuitively surrenders to it and she comes out all right. But that's the metaphor that Robert Jordan was going for and why Saidar is so alien for men. But in a particular way, this makes sense for, well, how would a woman rule the world? It would be kind of like through guiding rather than directing. If that makes kind of sense. Maybe this is 90s, 80s, kind of sounds too sexist, but I always like this kind of broad difference between the magic systems and how they are actually tied to specific gender roles. And then, okay, where am I going with it? So the other big difference that they note is that men are stronger.
Yes.
More, but they're more blunt. They can do one weave at a time. So you'll see kind of in later books, especially as Rand starts channeling, he'll do like a weave of fire and it would like blast and do what. But the more intricate and detailed and dedicated weaves are all done by women. In particular, Forsaken, like Lanfear, they can reach kind of the higher tier strength level simply by being able to do more at once. So again, this is a gendered thing about multitasking. Women are better than
you got that opposite there,
don't I?
You got it, yeah. Because in the scene she's talking about, where Egwene and Elena are talking to Rand, they're like flabbergasted that he can do like 12 different things at once. Because for women, I don't know why he did it this way, because like typically multitasking is seen as like a woman thing, but he actually makes it so it's harder for women to do. Women channelers, it's harder for them to do 2 weaves at once, whereas men, it makes no difference.
I it might be a difference essentially with just the power levels, because Rand is at the top tier of the male side, and Egwene and Elaine are not Forsaken tier. But because Nynaeve, it gets shown later, like Nynaeve is Forsaken tier, not the highest of the female Forsaken tier, but she's kind of up there. She's also got kind of multiple weave abilities. So that might be it. Is the more powerful you are, the quicker you learn. The more weaves you actually have access to, because some of them require a certain power threshold, and you do and you live longer. That's the other big thing. So, anyways, rant over.
Oh, wait, sorry, women live longer when they channel, not just it's just the women. It's not the men too.
No, men and women, but it's proportional to their power level.
Okay.
So the stronger you are, the longer you should live.
Oh, is that why the Forsaken are basically immortal, or are they suspended in time as when they are caged up?
Can I take this one, guys? I want to correct this so badly.
Yeah.
The Forsaken are not immortal. They were suspended in time the whole time that they were kind of in the boar with the Dark One, at least in the books. It looks like the show is basically said that they were individually sealed with like their own seal, and that's complete garbage. But what really bugs me in the second season is the scene where Lanfear gets her like stabbed through the heart and her throat slit, and she heals back from it. But
now somebody in my comments said that when they showed in her eyes, there was like a black cloud in her eyes, that this was a hint to people who knew the books that she has some extra special ability that the others do not have.
Yeah. And here I'm going to say you got to read and find out about what that is, because I don't think it's been hinted at already in the story, but you don't get a full explanation for a very long time about what that is. But it's more what I think happened, and I'm basing this off of the fact that not only her wound heals up through her heart, but her blouse does too.
Oh, I didn't even notice that, but I think, yeah, it does, doesn't it?
That could simply be that the show is shitty, but if her blouse heals up, what that implies to me, at least, is that she's rewinding time. So she's not she's not healing. She's basically winding time backwards. If I'm being generous, that's what I'm saying that the world is doing. So the Forsaken, she's not immortal, but if you slit her throat, even if you cut off her head or you chopped off her legs, and like we had a Deadpool moment where she had to I don't think it's healing. Like she wouldn't have to regrow her legs or anything. I think what they're establishing there is Lanfear can basically wind back time for herself. And that's got a big ass problem, because one thing that's established later on in the lore is that you can't escape time, because it's the wheel of time. Time always goes kind of in one direction. And there's a later line, minor spoilers, but even the Dark One himself says, I cannot step outside of time.
Okay. And you would think, I mean, if she can wind back time, why doesn't she just go back to the time when she and Lews Therin were together? Like, why doesn't she too many? Okay, so there are a lot of big powers in this show, in this series so far. And something I'm really curious about is how Robert Jordan harnesses them and limits them. Because if you give people a lot of ability, it means there's a lot of opportunities to get characters out of bad situations that you have to keep in mind as you're telling the story. And like, okay, that's one of them. Like if Lanfear can rise again, how do you kill her? Will she ever be able to die? Like she was dead, right? And she's alive now. Like she's stabbed through the heart, slit throat. Would it have been better if her head was cut off? Like, is this a Highlander situation where she needs to have her head cut off in order to not exist anymore? Like, I don't know.
That's what I said in my drunk review. Is like, why are you doing? Like, he cut up. One of my comments on that was like, why didn't he cut off her legs? And then if she grew them back like Deadpool, she could be like waddling down the thing after. It would have been funny. But like, yeah, it's like, if this was your plan, what? if you knew she was immortal and you couldn't kill, why did you even do this in the first place? But,
well, I could see it's like we're going to slow it down, but it's a problem later on if she does have to die. If Lanfear dies, she has to lose this power first.
Not just that. Ishamael apparently died at the end of this season too by getting stabbed in the heart. But does he not have the same powers as Lanfear?
That was what somebody said to me in the comments, and I was like, okay, so Lanfear's got this special ability apparently, but so
sorry,
okay,
the show sucks, and
it confuses me because I mix it up with the book, and I'm not sure if I have it right in my head.
I'm just looking at Kenny's 1,000-mile stare, just being like, he's not having fun.
Steve I'm sorry.
Either. No,
it's not you. We're talking about the show too much. All right, let's talk about book lore. All right, yes, Amber, what can we clarify for you?
These bonkers bubbles that happen where suddenly things go a little haywire in the universe.
Steve, you want to take this one, bud?
Sure.
I've seen it happen, I think, twice now at this point. We've had the Rand seeing the flashbacks of when the town was attacked. This is in book 2. So there was that one. I liked that scene. I know a lot of people are like, I hated it. I loved it. I enjoyed it because you were getting the same paragraphs over and over again with I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. Every time he's, blinking between them, you're seeing that time has gone by or something is different. To me, I was like, this is a tense moment. And then when we get to the second time that it happens, which it happened at the beginning-ish of book 4.
Yeah.
I think that's what it
Stone of Fear,
Yes. So it happens there. What the hell is going on? Is this the Dark One breaking out?
I just need to highlight a super chat here. So Yanan's given us $5 Canadian. Lanfear's superpower is Huck Tua Hing her way to the top of academia. Okay, let's not do any spoilers, but Yanan, thank you very much. And just to reiterate for all of our people watching, super chats to the Whitecloaks go to buy the books for public libraries, or actually it's high school libraries in and around wherever Alex and Pips and I live. So that's what we've decided. Everything you donate to us, we're going to buy the books back and make sure that more people are able to read it. So Thanks. Thank you very much, sir.
But yeah, so the bubbles, those don't really, they come up, they occasionally, it is kind of as the Dark One breaks loose, his essence or evil basically rises up, in a sense, you could say, through the pattern. And because they're a tavern, they can attract these basically, because they warp the pattern around themselves, the other characters. These bubbles are more likely to attach to Rand or Perrin or Matt. And then so it is I don't know if it would have happened, if it's a thing that's it's only starting to happen now, or if this is something that, it just happened much more rarely in the past. I don't know if they ever go into that, but it is something that happens with increasing frequency as the Dark One breaks free, basically.
And as the seals weaken and break.
Yeah, as the seals weaken.
That's the other thing. That's the other thing you get is the Eye of the World. You find a broken seal at the end of the second book. There's 2 broken seals, I believe. Baal Doman's and Turok's seal are busted, and then I think the next one that gets busted. Well, you'll find that a bit later. But yeah, it's by the end of the Great Hunt, 3 of the 7 seals holding the Dark One back are broken. And that's why these bubbles of evil become more frequent.
Wait, how many of the Forsaken are there? It's just 7?
Oh, sorry. No, okay. This is another thing we got to clear. There are 13.
Okay, I was like, I know that there's a bunch, but in the show they're saying there's only 7.
8.
Yeah, 8's their magic number for whatever reason. Yeah,
and it's not a magic number in the book series at all. And I think they're cutting some because they're problematic.
Okay. Problematic how?
One of them's transgender. Later. Spoilers.
Wouldn't
there's one
Not really, but
there's one transgender character in the whole Wheel of Time, but it's through the intervention of the literal devil.
Not even really that, but yeah.
Oh, okay. I was like, wouldn't you want to have, like, today they would want to put a transgender character on screen, I think. But if it's
not this one,
like
not
this
one.
Okay. I guess
not this one. When you get their origin story, being like, oh,
that's why they took it out.
It's a sick joke from the Dark One.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
All right. So,
well, Dan, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to spoil that. Oh man.
My theory, because it kept coming up, and I kept wondering what the hell is going on. Is this an attack from one of the Forsaken? Is this some sort of a trap that has been set? Like, what the hell is it? And so my theory was, it's like the barrier is cracking, like, because the first instance was not very obtrusive. He just sees the same scene happening over and over again. But the second time, you had reflections coming out of the mirror, and it was intense for everybody, so I'm just going, what is it going to get worse and worse and worse? And then I was trying to think what would get worse and worse and worse. It would be, I guess, the Dark One coming up or getting out. That was all I could think of. All right. So I got bubbles, crossing it off my list. All right. The next question I had, I don't know if I should save this one for the last, but I'm going to ask it now because why not? Who is the Dark One? Because is he the counter to the creator, or is he a man who became the Dark One? And I don't know if that's
counter to the creator.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think this is a spoiler. This is a kind of a broad world building, and where you see kind of where it's very Manichaean. The philosophy, the religion of the world, and where he drew his in. Robert Jordan took his influences from kind of world religions all over. Like the cyclical nature of time is very Hindu, but the Zoroastrian Manichaeism kind of view of there needs to be a light in the dark.
Yeah, that's
and again, you see that with the yin and yang symbol, although there's not the opposite dots inside, but it's like the dragon's fang and the flame of Tarvalon, when put together, it's that symbol of duality. There's a very dualistic worldview put throughout, but I don't want to spoil the ending. But what's so brilliant about it at the very end is
probably getting pretty close to spoiling it if you're gonna.
All right,
talk about what's brilliant about it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, don't spoil the big stuff.
Yeah.
If it's just a spoiler for book 4, I'm okay with it.
No, we'll save it for the end. But it's
okay.
View it as a Manichaean kind of philosophy of, or better yet, Saidin from South Park, who says or sings essentially in his magnum opus, up there, where he says, "Without evil, there can be no good. So it must be good to be evil sometimes."
Yeah. I'm a little bit familiar with this philosophy and how it works, but it is essentially that you cannot have one thing exist without its contrast, because it is defined by a lack of the contrasting thing. So I kind of figured that. I think that's what's going on here, because they have said it outright in the show that the Dark One wants to extinguish all of existence. It's to destroy everything, throw the world into non-existence. And I'm like, that would be, I think, the ultimate level of chaos then, where nothing is ordered at all. And if things are ordered, I was like, that must be what the creator is. The creator is order. This is where we get this whole idea of the wheel and the pattern. The pattern is the order. And the Dark One is the one who's unraveling it, essentially. I don't know. Just theories. That's what...
read and find out.
Okay. Okay. So I've got that one figured out. All right. I know that people can be reincarnated. So they've said this in the show, and it's been kind of talked about in the book a little bit, but how frequently are people reborn? How do they know who they are? Do they never know? Because you brought up earlier in here that there was a theory that Matt might be the reincarnation of, who was it? Arthur, not somebody.
No, it was either. There was a theory early on that he might have been the reincarnated king of Manetheren, who featured heavily in Moraine's story. But other folks, and then like it's minor spoilers because it doesn't come really back, is that he was a general of Manetheren. Or at least that's who his character was. And there are hints of it too at the end of The Great Hunt, where Arthur Hawkwing, who's a hero of the Horn revived, he recognizes Matt and calls him the Gambler.
Yeah.
So kind of a character. I think Matt is wondering if he's one of them, but
that was kind of what I was thinking. I was like, oh, are all the characters going to be reincarnations of famous people? Like,
the thing is it's everybody is theoretically a reincarnation of someone.
Yeah.
Normally, no one would ever know who they were. You'd have no memory whatsoever of it. The only reason it kind of is a known thing with Rand is because there's a prophecy that says, "Hey, you're going to be reborn."
This particular person. That was one of the more egregious things that the show did, was when Egwene is tied up kind of after her spa day and being like, if you kill me, I'll come back and I'll haunt you. Because us book readers are like, no, you won't. Because you won't even know you're this person reborn and you won't have any memory of this happening. And why are you saying this? This is like the opposite of how the world works, right?
There was nothing else she could do except if I could come back as a ghost, I would, and I would haunt you. I don't know.
Well, it wouldn't have frightened Eamon Valda. It was one of the, like, that's a big lore breaking line of mine, but it's like one every 5 minutes in this show. So,
yeah, sorry. It is. Okay, and so the dragon. Okay, I'm trying to see how the dragon fits in with the creator and the Dark One, because is the dragon essentially like a trigger for either the creator or the Dark One to get their way? So if the dragon is the dragon going essentially to with the help of the creator, could create the world or keep it in existence or protect it, but in the hands of the Dark One would essentially be the trigger that destroys everything. Is that how that works? Like the creator and the Dark One only get their power through the dragon?
No, it's yeah, Kenny can take this one. But
if you want to answer, Steve,
there's a lot of read and find out in this one, but
I think for where you're at, that's probably close enough. Like that's it's not quite right, but that's pretty apt.
Close. Okay. Because well, I mean, we know what the Dark One wants to do. The Dark One, as
Like
Sean Hale said it, I want the dragon to destroy the world. So I'm like, why can't the Dark One just do that on his own?
They're trying to turn him, and and Rand's supposed to be fighting against him. So it's kind of a struggle over Rand in a sense. So it's not. I think it's a close enough description for where you're at. I don't know if y'all agree, but I think it sounds fine.
Yeah, I mean, in essence, I guess, in that sense.
Clarify here for Amber that Ishamael and the Dark One's motivation in the show is not actually book accurate.
Okay.
Oh, that might be. I don't know what their motivation in the show is. In the book, that's one of those kind of read and find out things. Because they get more into that later, like what Ishmael's specific motivations are. As far as like, do they have power other than the dragon? I would say, yeah, they do. The creator, you haven't really seen him do anything, I guess, other than the pattern existing would be like his power.
He talks to Rand in the at the end of the Eye of the World.
Maybe,
or at least that's implied, like that the big bold voice when Rand hears it and he cannot intervene, and he kind of is a bit of a guiding. But Rand is like a Christ figure, right? So or the dragon it's like it's a surrogate, and both the creator and the Dark One can only really directly impact events kind of through their surrogates. I think would be a way to explain it.
Kind of. Yeah. I mean, as far as like where you're at, I guess that's a fine. I would say it's kind of more like that's just those are the people that are engaging in these things, like because both these. Oh, I think we lost Kenny, but both these people have some amount of.
Kenny's get more drinks.
Okay. They both have some amount of power to interact and affect things. They just don't, I guess. Well, the Dark One does more than the Creator, but
I get that a lot. John Thomas. I don't see it, but I know a lot of people do. It's just the shape of these glasses. If I'm not wearing them, people are like, no. So, but okay, so then that's my next question is, like, is the Dark One, if the Dark One and the Creator are essentially equal forces in constant conflict with each other, yeah, that's like what I'm imagining. Then how come we have this very present Dark One and very absent Creator? Oh, thanks.
I would say
I've never gotten that one before.
I would say don't necessarily think just because like there's the kind of a Manichaean sense that they are necessarily equal to each other. So I would say like the difference would be as far as we know, the Creator just doesn't care to be as active in that sense.
I put it a little bit differently. So the Dark One is there to actively work against creation. So the bubbles of evil would kind of be it's evil floating through the pattern, but creation itself stems from the Creator. So if you're saying that the Creator is not active, the Creator is there because
creation exists, right? But the thing is we're getting the reference is that there's a personification of chaos, and that is the Dark One. So is there a personification of the Creator? And if so, how come we don't get this awareness of a personification of the Creator that is active and has a thing that they are doing? Occasionally, I might have it, I might be just remembering wrong, but I seem to recall somebody in book 4, just even now, talking about the Creator intervening in some way. And I was like, why are they not doing this more? Why are people not reaching out to the Creator and trying to, how do we contact the Creator and get the Creator to fight for us? Instead, we're like going after this dragon who could go either way. Like go after the good, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say
intervention's the wheel, though.
Yeah, they do, because they say like, oh, light help me, light do this, light do that. Like that's what they're saying is Creator do these things basically.
Right, but
there's an element there too that Kenny was talking about like the Ta'veren power, just the nature of the pattern warping itself around particular characters could be a way of interpreting like
a presence.
The Creator is control of events, or things need to happen particular ways, and they can Ranmat and Perrin as Ta'veren and kind of being the guiding strings and shifting everyone's life threads around them, and that chance and randomness don't really apply anymore. And like from a storytelling point of view, it's great. The plot needs to follow your main characters, and whatever they need kind of shows up. Like I get it as a writing device, but as like a magical power, I would be saying that the Ta'veren nature of these main characters is the Creator in action. And we can't separate the Creator from the pattern, wheel, and the creation. So I wouldn't really be seeing the Creator as kind of an off-screen, never-present force, and the Dark One being the more active agent. I think they kind of balance each other out in the story. That's just my view.
Yeah, I do see that. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's
but no spoilers.
No, I think I can see that. You know, that the creation itself is the evidence of the Creator's work, and then the things happening with the Ta'veren. It was unusual to me, though, that you have this personification of the Dark One, where unless the Dark One is just the term that they use for chaos, but I don't think it is. Like they they seem to say that the Dark One was a presence. You had a presence at some point, a conscious interaction with other people. It's not like this is two opposing natural forces and they just call one of them the Dark One and the other one the Light One. But there was a personification on the dark side. So I was just wondering how that, how does that work? Will we see a personification of the creator? And perhaps also, was there a reason for that? Does it somehow fit in? Like, this is why I felt like the Dark One must be lesser than the creator. Like I thought going into this, the Dark One is lesser than the creator, but now I'm like, oh, okay, no, it's the embodiment of chaos, essentially, right?
You get some musings from later on. You get some musings on like the nature of the creator and stuff. Like it's not spelled out. This is actually how it is, but you get some like ideas. So they kind of flesh it out more later to some degree, like what the creator's role is outside of just making the wheel of time, but nothing concrete. But it does discuss it.
But I think it's a fair comment to say that the Dark One is actually the lesser of the two, right? Because it is the creator's world, and this is
and in their theology, the creator is the one who imprisoned the Dark One. Like that's they all say that, they all believe that. That's the kind of the way like the whole world started, basically. And so you are supposed to kind of see the creator as
bound from the moment of creation.
Yeah. But
so creation could not exist if the Dark One is free, essentially.
Well, I would say more like that one's kind of like you're getting into read and find out stuff. But
sorry,
I would say like
I think there's a better word for the chaos and its entropy. Because again, Robert Jordan is a bit of a physics guy, so I think entropy would be a better description of the force the Dark One represents.
Is it not the same? Because there's an entropy leading towards chaos. Like it's a scale.
No, well, chaos to me at least signals kind of activity. Entropy is kind of like the slow death and nothingness and nihilism.
Yeah.
Which would be the end result of ultimate chaos, where there's no form, right?
Of course you're right. I've got a political science degree. I don't have an English lit degree.
Okay. All right. So the Dark One.
All right. But so long as we're speaking the same language. But yes. I'm
kind of reading chat. I like occasionally my eyes go over there to skim through it. Yeah. I was like, I might be missing some though. I'm sure I'm missing some. Okay.
And let's leave this topic aside, Amber. But what all of us book lovers really love is the payoff at the very end, because essentially it's so satisfying. Just when you get the full worldview and the major themes, and it all kind of comes to the crescendo. Brandon Sanderson did a masterful job of weaving this all together. We'd like to think that Robert Jordan left copious notes for everything, but the more we find it, or read about it, and like Brandon Sanderson did a lot of heavy lifting to get these final books together. And although we like to nitpick and point out particular shortcomings from plot lines and this or that, or what could be done differently, I don't think anyone could have stuck the landing better than he did. And he hit the nail on the head where he needed to. And the ultimate climax of the series is very satisfying, with all these themes coming together. So,
and that's pretty much what I've heard as well, which is why I finally broke down and said, okay, I'll read it. I was 14 books, but oh my gosh, okay, I'll just do it.
It's not 14 because we're all expecting you to reread it one day too, so you could be one of us.
Well, that's what it would be.
28 books.
Reconsumable media for me, something that you can enjoy it on your first consuming, so reading or viewing, whatever, but you will get almost a totally new experience doing it the second time, but with appreciation, and you're going to feel reconsumable essentially just means that you can go through it again and again, and each time you're going to get more from it or something new from it. And I heard that that's what this is. Dain told me about the goosebumps that basically
Rand feels Elaine and Egwene channeling, and he gets the goosebumps. And if you go back to early chapters,
it happens anytime that Moraine channels, Rand is able to sense it in that way, but doesn't realize he's sensing it. And as a reader, knowing that men can't sense women and women can't sense men, it just goes over your head. And then you get to the change in not the change in the story, but the revelation that actually men can. And so I really enjoy that. And I've heard that this book is really good at their series, does it quite well. So that's why I committed to the long journey. But so for you guys, because most people I know who have read the series and liked it go back and read it again and again and again like that. For you guys, you've done it so many times now at this point. Do you still find yourself discovering things you didn't pick up on before? Because I've only read 3.5 books, and I'm still like, I can barely remember some of the things that happen. Like people like, oh, remember this is that thing that Perrin and Matt did. And I go, oh crap, I completely forgot about that, because there are so many events taking place in each of these novels, and they seem all to have purpose and meaning in the long run. So it's a very complex story, but for you guys, having read it so many times, is that still happening for you?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I would say so.
We did a book cloak stream. So Steve, so what we did, Amber, is a few months back when people were shitting on, finally the fandom was acknowledging, or at least the show fans, that the season 1 sucked, and they started blaming the source material as not being the best book. And I got really uppity about that, because I totally agree. Like if you're brand new to the series, there's so much in it that you won't appreciate until you've read further books and you come back to it. But the amount of awesome stuff just buried in there waiting to be discovered upon a reread is transcendental. So that's why The Eye of the World is one of my favorite books. And I brought Pixie and Sneed on to basically do a book cloak stream, chapters at a time, and highlight chapter by chapter, kind of section by section, what is something that you didn't see the first time you read it, but you see now and you appreciate. And I think we got a lot of discussion on every section, every kind of chapter about what's something to appreciate further. And the best part about doing that with these guys is I got stuff that I hadn't even seen yet. So I think for me, Kenny, there was a part where you're basically mentioning that Jane Farstrider was the person that the Ogier were talking about. This is very kind of random, but the Jane Farstrider character who has his travels, and he especially comes up in the story about Lan and Mulkir and towards the end, but that the Ogier through Loyal are basically saying someone was talking about the Eye of the World, but this was 10 years ago. And his identity is left ambiguous. And then Pixie here is like, yeah, but that was Jane Farstrider. And I was like, I've read this book 30 times and I never clued in that was who it was. And I'm sure that Steve and Kenny, you probably got something out of those discussions as well. Mm-hmm. But if you can just share that in a non-spoiler way with Amber, if something's top of mind, that would be great. These guys are now being dicks, being like, yeah, no, I kind of knew everything already, and I was faking it on the book cloak streams.
It's been a while since the book cloak stream, Dain.
I know one that you guys may have missed that I caught.
Yeah, go for it.
Which actually, I don't know if I ever noticed it like really beforehand, because I always assumed everybody liked Egwene. She's the one that kills the raven that's gonna warn the other ones. Perrin and Elyas they're too late to kill it, and she kills it. And everybody's I remember I caught that the last time because everybody's always talking crap on her. So I was really paying attention, and I was like, oh yeah, see, she saves their asses in that book.
I know that Egwene is not popular in the show, especially, but this is so in the books as well. Nynaeve's my least favorite in the books, but I mean, she's not nearly as least favorite as she is in the show. Like in the show, actually, Moiraine is worse, but in the show, like Nynaeve, I don't know what they're doing. They make her dumb.
Moron's only worse now, but all right. Before Kenny gets into his thing, I just have to point out, like, all right, the whole Nynaeve character arc, it's a multi-book arc, but she's unlikable, and it's very deliberate. And when she becomes a lot of people's favorite character by the end of the series, but there's a specific reason for it. And once you've read through like 9 books or 12 books, I can point it out. But it's like a meta joke about at least what I think is the central theme of the Wheel of Time, which is men and women working together. And when they're separated, they don't work. When it's just women alone, like the White Tower, it's not working. When it's just the men alone, it's not working. Okay. You need to have both men and women working together. And it's personified in Nynaeve and Lan.
Okay.
Sorry, Kenny. You were going to say...
I was going to say, in reference to Egwene, she's not popular within our community at all. I think the wider fandom is somewhat mixed, but I would say she's probably much more popular in other areas of fans. Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely a minority to be an Egwene fan around here.
She gets a lot of hate in my comments, and I don't know if this is stemming from her show her show self, or
she's been hated for years.
Well. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a read and find out. It's like past book 6 or 7, where I could explain it better then, because up until now, like, yeah.
Let's just say she does something that is not wrong, but everybody else other than me thinks is like the worst thing imaginable. But she's not wrong.
The first bit of Eye of the World is hysterical about foreshadowing. 3 different characters comment that Nynaeve needs a husband while still in Emond's Field.
That's why Nynaeve is not likable until she becomes likable.
Okay.
Senbu is like that woman needs a husband. And this is another thing that I need to correct you on the show. A wisdom never weds. Total fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Non-existent whatsoever. The whole like the problem that is with Rand and Egwene about Egwene wanting to be a wisdom has more to do with the fact that Nynaeve is like 25 and will be the wisdom until she like dies 50 years from now. So if Egwene wants to be a wisdom, they have to move somewhere else. They can't be in Emond's Field. That's
wisdoms do rarely marry, though. I think it does get mentioned.
Never.
It's not never. It's not never. Right. But it is. In fairness to the show, it is spoken as like, well, that's something.
Don't say that ever again. In fairness to the show. No,
small changes like that, I just don't understand, because it's like, what's the point? What did it add when it's just as effective to say if she becomes a wisdom, she will have to move?
Yeah.
To me, actually, that's worse than like, oh, wisdom never marries, because Rand could easily just still be with her, but they're not married. Right?
It's even more rare for an Aes Sedai to wed than a wisdom. Is the next thing, and you know, a wisdom never weds. Like, that was all made up drama, and it had nothing to kind of do with the show. The reasons why Aes Sedai are at least aware of what's going on with them and why they kind of wouldn't want to wed. And part of it is their kind of extended lifespan. But to the extent that wisdoms know that they're consciously channeling, that's a little bit rare. And what's the other? The wisdom that ends up replacing Nynaeve is Daze Congar, a married woman that we met in like the very first chapter. So I hate the show. Sorry.
I have one more thing here written down, and it's about the 3 oaths.
And I'm looking at my watch being like, all right, we're almost 2
up.
hours into this, and now we're going to have to take another 3 hours to to set all this stuff straight. Awesome.
So the 3 oaths. Okay. And somebody just mentioned the arches, and I actually just realized I have a question about the arches too, so I'll write that down. Okay,
Perfect.
but the 3
we can
oaths.
do them both.
So with the 3 oaths, it makes it so you cannot do the things that you have sworn not to do. It's not even that if you do it, you're out or something. It's like, no, you can't, you physically cannot do it, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even though we regularly see characters doing things, but it's in the show. Right. Except in the book, like when the Amarylline Seat, because this happened at the beginning of book 4, the Amarylline Seat is like, oh, well, we'll just tell people that the girls are on a farm. Like, these are lies. And we're going to tell everybody that men, you're here because you got 2 beaux who you can't decide between. So you're treating from them. These are lies. So how is she informing people this is what we're going to tell everybody?
Because telling someone else to lie, you haven't lied. That the oaths, like Moraine could tell anybody she wants, like, oh, go tell that person a lie. Lan, for example, can lie on her behalf. He could say, oh, no, she's not Aes Sedai. She just can't say, I'm not Aes Sedai.
Okay, but what about a lie in ignorance? It has to be intent, because if she tells this to other, an intentional lie. All right, so it has to be.
You have to also believe that it's a lie. Like if you thought that there was X, Y, and Z was in this room, and you said X, Y, Z is in that room, and it's not like it. Yeah, they're not. Well, you thought it was the truth.
Okay, all right. Then that covers the stuff that I was worried about.
For example, and this is how Robert Jordan does some misdirection, is and you pick this up on some of your reviews. When Swan Sanche, the Amarylline Seat, lets the Shinerans know that the Horn of Valir will summon back the heroes, but they'll fight for whoever blows the horn. She believes that to be true, but at the end of the Great Hunt, Arthur Hawkwing kind of asks like the Dragon Banner, which kind of brings back like the Dragon Banner is important and Rand's life depends on it, but they'll fight for the dragon and they need the banner. And that there is kind of the suggestion, or at least the overt saying like, no, the heroes of the light fight for the light. They just need the Dragon Banner there. But Swan Sanche might have been mistaken for whatever reason, but she's able to say it because the oath is not. She believes
it's true.
And the oath, very particularly, is not lying. It's about speaking a word that isn't true. So right in there, you got speaking, and you have a word or words that aren't true, rather than attempting to deceive, right? Because Aes Sedai deceive all the time.
Yeah.
But this is what I love about the books is after this kind of gets established and that it's a magical compulsion or compunction on these characters, and then you see Nynaeve go into an inn, or not Nynaeve, sorry, Moraine go into an inn and say, this is Master, or you can call me Mistress Alice and call him Master Andra.
Yeah, she's not lying. She's just giving them permission to call them these things. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's that kind of subtlety that shows kind of two things, both the intelligence of Moraine and the subtlety that they can do, but also the limitations that are set upon them and their way around it.
Okay, so the follow-up to that is, have the Black Aja uncovered some way to break the 3 oaths, or is it like a contract with the Dark One and he breaks it, or one of the Forsaken breaks it? Like, how does that?
Read and find out for sure.
Damn it. Okay.
Yeah, that's just pretty much exclusively read.
That's the biggest read and find out we can give you. But your instincts are good, and what I'll be saying here, look for Aes Sedai who can lie.
Yeah. Well, oh, you mean, okay, I got it. like that'll be one of the clues that you can discern who is one of the Black Aja. Is that what you're hinting at?
I'm not hinting at anything. I'm just saying it's like, well, watch out for lies. And here's the thing: it's like we're watching Moron in the show lying left, right. She's saying like, I cannot lie, and then she's like, I didn't kill the ferryman. It's like, yeah, you did, because you fucking like you could have pulled him out of the water, and not only that, it just got established that tying off weeds isn't a thing. So you did a whirlpool, so you must have sunk him to the ground. So obviously you killed the ferryman. You liar.
So I could, by the rules that have been just explained to me, she could believe that she wasn't responsible for his death because he jumped in. Like, I'm not here to defend the show, but could she do that? She could like, okay, I made the whirlpool, and the guy jumped in of his own volition.
She could, if she was convinced that she wasn't the direct cause of his death, she could say, I did not kill that man. Yes.
So she doesn't hold herself responsible for not saving him. Like, not saving him is not the same as not killing him. Or
not
as killing him. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
She could say, I did not murder him.
Oh, dude,
what did that last text say? I didn't see what it said.
Oh, sorry. Trip was saying something about.
Oh my God. It was like third time reading.
Can we use Lanfear's trick with the stable
woman on
I think she's mad because you keep spoiling shit.
No, I'm not spoiling anything. Trip just wants me to basically sew my mouth shut like Neo from the Matrix.
That's actually the exact clip that I use for. Has somebody else done that? Damn it! Because I thought it was like, oh, this looks exactly like from the Matrix because I used that clip in that.
But that's
my episode.
We haven't seen your episode 5 review yet, Amber. When is that
dropping?
I have,
because I've been editing it. I'm trying to make it funny because it's not funny. I got to a point that's actually my opening for it. Is this episode was like actually okay, but
as long as you do the eagle sound for the show's Dain Bornhold going forward instead of Lan, I think I'll be okay.
I don't know. Like, okay, so I gotta.
No, I'm just kidding.
The eagle is specifically for Lan. But if he ever looks like a hippie, he's going to be a duck for sure. I maybe I'll have to come up with something with Dain, but they don't really do anything with him in season 2. He's there for 2 scenes. He's there at the beginning of.
Yeah, but he's
there with Perrin comes in. Okay, yeah, he is. He's a good-looking guy, which is how you know that he's a main character in season 2. When you come across him with Perrin in season 2, you're like, oh, he must be main character because he's a good-looking guy.
He's got main character face. All Dains do. No,
very, very humble.
That's a humble brag. Humble brag and mansplaining. That's why I'm here.
Shoot, what was I going to say? We're doing the 3 O's, and then there's the killing. Yeah, definitely the finale of season 2. I don't know how they're.
Oh God! Yeah, when
could she convince herself that she was just sinking? I was just sinking the ships. I wasn't killing people.
Or maybe she's convinced
she was murdering thousands, and she was not in danger. Yes, that's.
And she was extremely far away. The arches, Amber. Yes, thank you. I've got that written down too. I've got it.
So here's a minor spoiler, but it's so minor that I don't even know what book this comes from. But there's a later scene in like book 10 or 11 where Egwene is in a position where she's thinking about sinking a ship using the one power. Just like Terran Ferry and Sing. And she's basically like, no, I can't do it. Because even though like it's not directly using the one power as a weapon or violation of the oath, it's like there's the risk that it could. And that stops her. And for me, that's
she hasn't
like
taken the 3 oaths, has she?
Read and find out.
That'll be read and find out, yeah.
Because if she hasn't taken the 3 oaths, she could do it. Isn't that one of the reasons why it was like a good idea to send the girls after the Black Aja, because they're not confined by the 3 oaths.
The main reason
it's a much later book, and I don't want to spoil for you whether she's taken it or not.
The main reason they sent them is they're the only ones they can trust aren't dark. Like we know for a fact.
We know for sure that
some
they're
of
not.
the only ones that we know for a fact they're not. So
because they were targeted by the Black Aja. Or at least that's Juan Sanchez' reasoning.
Yeah, well, it's also I mean,
also because they know their origin. Maybe we know where Nynaeve and Egwene came from.
And Nynaeve, it's pretty.
As far as Elaine is concerned, I mean, what's the logic there?
She's great. I love Elaine.
Yeah, I mean,
I know I do too. But
Sneed
she's kind of around. I guess it's like she's around. Might as well include her.
Sneed and Jonathan are big Egwene fans, and then like me, Kenny, are you the big Elaine fan along with me? No, okay.
Yeah.
Kenny just hates everybody, but I love.
She's
Elaine.
fine, but I don't love her.
Yeah,
I think I commented one time that she was great for smacking Egwene in book 3. Like, so she pretty much I can't hate her after that. But
that's why I love her. Yeah, exactly.
I'm kind of neutral about her in the book, but I love her in the show. And I know that's like, well, wait, how can you like something more? Because everyone else is so awful. That's why. She's probably exactly the same or very similar to actually she is quite similar to how she is in the book. But because everyone else around her is so terrible, I'm like, oh, what a breath of fresh air. We get Elaine now, finally, Like, seriously, I was so happy when she was added as a character. And we got her for like one episode and then nothing. And then we do get her humiliating Nynaeve in episode 5, which was good. But then that's it. Like, we did nothing. We did hardly anything with her.
And now
she's going to heal Rand.
Trip has been taking me to task all stream long for giving you minor spoilers, Amber. And then she drops this, which is the ultimate fucking spoiler.
Dain loves her oval cutouts.
Oval cutouts. Exactly. Way to ruin the whole book series for Amber. Jesus Christ, Trip. God damn.
I have no clue what the hell that means. Did I miss?
Okay. Now let's read and find out.
Okay. All right. I had the 3 outs. Arches question. Okay. I honestly, the arches confused me because are they going into kind of like the portals, like a parallel world, or is this just a vision?
They're going into a place. It's not necessarily explained exactly what it is. It would probably something like the dream world, or maybe something like the portal stones. I don't think it is the different realities like the portal stones, but they are physically going to a different place.
Yeah, they definitely are going somewhere because they disappear and you can get stuck in there, obviously. And there have been Aes Sedai who've been stuck in them. My thing was because in the show it was very like it was focused on a lot that they don't know if this place is real, if like this isn't an alternate reality where you could literally stay there and just live an entire life and it's a different universe. And I'm like, oh, is it like the portal stones, except you get to actually take your place in that world?
Yeah, in the books I don't know, but it's hinted based on what happens with the Egwene's test that it's more to do with the world of dreams. So it's probably crafting a world through the world of dreams to do the test, but we don't really know. But they say that Egwene has that bad reaction on her test is because when there's 2 Ter'angreal that work in the same field, like that kind of do the same type of thing, you get a resonance. So her dream weaving Ter'angreal was in there with the arches. So that implies they're both work off the world of dreams in some way. So it's probably that more than actual alternate universes. But as we know, the world of dreams touches everything. So, there could be more stuff going on that we don't know.
Okay, gotcha. And about them I do want to know if this is ever explained, because it bugged me in the books and it bugged me in the show. So if they did it in the show, the Aes Sedai don't really know how they work or what they do. Like they really don't know. And yet it's part of the acceptance test. So was that just all they know is this was the acceptance test? You have to go through these arches. We don't even know how they were made, but this tradition of doing this has survived somehow. So how does
I would say that's pretty much it. It has more to do also with like they know enough to know like this we do this, it will result in this, and it will require you to make these decisions that leave behind these other things that you want or face certain fears you have for the Aes Sedai, like for us, for the tower. So I think that's kind of why they use it. Like
they know that the tests that the initiates will encounter test their devotion to the Aes Sedai, the temptation. Right.
I don't want to say it tests the devotion at all. It's more just they offer you something else. I mean, theoretically, even if you hated the tower, you could still say, no, I don't want to, experience. I'll leave these things behind. It's just that's the only reason you're going into these is because I want to become accepted. So it's like, no, they don't know like everything about these things. They just know enough to use them, I guess.
Yeah. And Amber, in your review of episode 3, you hit the nail on the head where you're just like, why would Nynaeve want to stay in all of her tests? Whereas in the books, the point of the test is basically, and the point of Egwene's test that you see later on, is it tempts both Nynaeve and Egwene with reasons to stay within that world. But if they really want to be Aes Sedai, then they'd be willing to walk away from what they're tempted with. So for Nynaeve, it's basically Agenor. Yeah, he sees her naked or whatnot, and she gets flustered about it, but she starts defeating him. And she's kind of tempted with like, I can beat this son of a bitch and I can win and do a big thing. But then the art shows up and I have to withdraw from my temptation, which is a victory of, at least in combat here, and a one-up of someone who humiliated her in the previous book, or at least like treated her like a kitten.
That went over my head when I read it, but when it was explained, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Yes, and it does make sense. But yeah, in the show, they changed these things and it did not.
It's like, why the hell would you want to stay as a child in your basement with your parents murdered? And and it's like, oh, the arch is here, and you're just like, all right, I'm gonna bug the fuck out. The second one, the same thing. It's like it tried to do the same thing as what was in the books, right?
But it didn't.
But it's
the whole point.
So past, present, future was another kind of theme of, at least in the books, the Nynaeve's test. But the present was, this is manifesting all her worries about the world she left behind and her responsibilities, and it's playing on her fears of like, what if there was a wisdom in Edmund's Field who is basically evil and poisoning children and bullying people even more than Nynaeve bullied people, and right then and there, it's her temptation of like, the people that she knew and grew up with and her role as a wisdom, is that more important to her than being an Aes Sedai? So this is what the Aes Sedai are testing for. What does she want? And then the last one, probably the most cruel, is the future and the world that, like, what she would love more than anything is being with Lan, who's king of Malkir, in a fully restored Malkir kingdom, with children and everything. And what's more important to her is becoming an Aes Sedai or the world she always wanted. And what did we see in the show is basically she's in a thruple, or is it a quadruple? I got polyamory. Polyamory is a bad word because that's Latin and Greek, but polyamory, like, she's like married to Matt Perrin and Lan in that with his hippie haircut.
I didn't get that they were married. I got that he and Nynaeve were married. Did somebody else get that? I didn't get that. I got that.
I got that they were like just hanging out.
Yeah, that's what I got.
I got the vibe that all 4 of them were there as kind of like, we're in the same house. We got 1 daughter and 3 dads. That's what I got. But that's because the show's fucking.
I think you might be reaching on that one.
I think you are reaching.
I think you're reaching there.
No, because the showrunners basically said, we love polyamory, and we're going to show that. And it can't just be freaking Alana, because that's just gross.
I think if there was ever a moment where we saw Nynaeve doing something intimate with Matt or Perrin, then it would be no question. But because it wasn't shown at all, it's not even open to interpretation. There's only been evidence of a romance between Nynaeve and Lan. There's never been that between her and Matt or Perrin.
But why does Matt show up in a nice outfit? Why is he welcome after like
he's rich? I think he's become rich, and that's in her fantasy is that he became, exactly what he always wanted. He was the poor one in town. Now he's this successful guy, and he came to deliver a message.
No, it's where does the third one go? That at least that's my headcanon for this stupid show. But in essence, again, it's like that vision. It's like, okay, so that's her fantasy world. But when it comes to fruition, when the arch shows up again, they're all dead, and the Trollocs are about to kill it. Like, why would she want to stay?
Yeah. Also,
so
just in the book, her channeling to get out of there seemed like it was an important thing, and I didn't know if it was because it's important because it shows that she has a very specific type of ability, or if it's just a level of ability. But it's one of those two things.
I think it's the latter.
The level of ability. Okay, well then I guess they kind of showed that when they're in Shadar Logoth, I guess, or not Shadar Logoth.
No,
when they're in the waves.
They would
in the show. They've already established that.
Yeah, they've figured out
in the book. I think it's kind of just she's powerful. She's a badass, basically.
Okay, just checking.
In the show, I think they would have thought they established this or paid homage to this through the fact that Nynaeve missed the arch on the first instance, and that it showed up again a second time, even though it only happened once. Whereas in the books,
she makes it come the second time.
She has to force the arch back, which is her strength of will that you rightly pointed out in your review of it. That's different than what at least in the show feels like a Deus Ex Machina being like, I thought she missed the arch and she stuck it, and then it showed, but right at the best time, when you had to run away from all these Trollocs and like everyone was dead, and
the way will come but once until it comes
except if it comes twice. I hate the show.
I don't know if the arch appeared after a week. It was several years, right? Or wait, how long was she supposed to have been in the arches? Did it say how long she was in there?
She said she was in there for years.
Well,
That's what she said in the show.
But
she had a grown-up daughter.
In the outside world, I think it was only supposed to be like a week or something.
I don't think that. I think it was a day because Nynaeve, or not Nynaeve, Egwene and Elaine were spending the night in there. So it was one day. She was in there for one day.
And she had a full daughter, and apparently all the memories associated with it. But the way they treated it and what is ultimately the point of the arches, the lesson, like the show missed the point completely. Like they threw a fucking airball. They thought like swoosh, and they missed it by a mile. Imbeciles. Amber, have we answered all of your questions about the lore on the show? Because I don't think we have. I think we scratched the surface on some.
I think, like, if
I don't. How's your voice going? Yeah,
my voice is okay. I haven't been talking by myself for 2 hours, so it's doing okay so far. But
can we?
Go ahead.
How about this, Steve? What is one thing that you would love a newcomer to both book and show to know? Keeping in mind like book 4 tops spoilers. What would you say is like? Just keep in mind about the book series. Thematically, or how it's like.
I would say like as kind of a meta thing, don't like if you think there's a slog, because everybody talks about the slog. If you think there is one, then I guess but a lot of people don't. So don't get too scared about like being like, oh, I'm about to start the slog. Like I think that kind of helps ruin a lot of people's enjoyment of the series when they're doing a first time read. Is so many fans tell them like, oh, just wait till you get to the slog. Just wait till you get to the slog. Personally, there's none of the books I don't like. There's no parts of the story that I don't like. But I think if everybody had told me, oh, you're going to hate this part, you're going to hate this part, then maybe I would, but I don't. I love all the parts of the books. So I would say just don't be too scared of the length of the series or the fact that there's some fans don't like certain parts.
Steve is so near and dear to my heart here, but my own view, sorry to interject on this, but it's like, if you weren't reading the books as they came out, I don't think you have a right to call it a slog. That's part of, because I understand the fan criticism, and in part, a lot of it had to do with how long it took for the books to come out between volumes and what people were expecting. But now that all the books are out, yes, the pacing does slow, but if you're aware of that going forward, well, shit, at least you don't have to wait 2 years for the next one to read it and try and get the answers that you thought were coming and then they didn't come. They'll come eventually. Like I was saying, like the books do a very good job of wrapping up all these plots. But I also get semi-offended by people who have just like, hey, I just got through the slog. And it's just like, no, you didn't, because you didn't read it in 2006. Like,
yeah,
that's my issue with that kind of mentality. Yes, the pacing slows down, but you don't have to wait for it. The flip side of it is, holy shit, guys, Robert Jordan actually came out with books every 2 years, unlike George R.R. Martin, who hasn't fucking published a book since when? Or Patrick Rothfuss, who hasn't published a book since when? Like, there's a slog, and then there's like, check yourself, because there's these other writers that have done it way worse than RJ ever did.
I'm not especially intimidated by the idea of a slog. Like, slow pacing does not necessarily mean bad pacing. And that's not from me. That's Hello Future Me said that the first time, and I was like, he's so right. If it's engaging and you feel like these things that are happening to these characters are important to them internally, it gives the moment value. Like, I know that I might be alone here, but I love The Name of the Wind. Nothing happens in it, but I love it. I love it for its own merit, because the language, I think, is great. I like that he's got these mundane trials, but they are a big deal to him. Like, I like that stuff. But it's, a lot of people read it and they go, we're at the end of a really fat second volume, and he still hasn't gone on the main, like,
he's still on he's still on the inn telling his story.
Yes. Yeah. So I don't know how he could possibly wrap it up. Anyway, we're not talking about The Name of the Wind, but that doesn't bother me, as long as, like, the things that you guys are saying, this is reconsumable material. If I can appreciate it on a first time read, and then it will be even better on second and third, like, that's fine for me. So depending on what's going on with the characters and how important it is to their growth as a character. Hell, I read Pride and Prejudice, like, Tea and Crumpets, that can be engaging, depending on what's going on. Like, think about Game of Thrones. How much of the drama is just in conversation? Like, people's lives depended on a conversation. And that's something that I think people don't understand, is it doesn't have to be action for it to be important, or for it to feel like it has weight. People's lives depending on what happens in a conversation is a big deal. Having big secrets revealed that change the way a character thinks or feels about something is a big deal. So it doesn't have to be action. If that's what you guys are referring to as far as slow pacing, that it's just not a lot of action, that's what I'm looking for.
There's a lot more plots. Like, the characters separate in the later books, and you get new characters, and therefore you get more plots. So when Matt and Rand and Egwene and Moraine are all together going to the Aiel Waste, that's one thing. But when they all separate out and have their kind of own plot lines, that's part of the issue, where it feels like the pacing is slowing down, because you have to follow these characters individually rather than the same events affecting this group of characters, just that the chapters are kind of told from the one character's perspective after another, but the story is still progressing kind of in that linear fashion. But Kenny, how about you? What would you say kind of going forward for Amber, like on the book series, or not the show, like?
Gosh, Yeah, it's sad that the the show's kind of tainted some of the books for you as far as how you interpret certain things. But yeah, the books are just so much richer, so much better, so much more rereadable than anything the show ever did. So I always feel sad for the people that are coming into it now. Like a lot of people will say, "Oh, it's the show will get people into the books," but it's always just seems like it's going to taint. Like if you watch the show first, it kind of will taint things for you in a way, unless you just come to it, it's like that was terrible. But
it's like the Taint on Saidin.
Yeah,
it'll drive you insane.
I think ultimately people are more satisfied with things that make sense. And there's so much, especially in season 1, that does not make any sense. Like even just the freaking dialogue was nonsensical in a lot of scenes. And then in season 2, it's plot stuff like the collar and
what you do to these women is an abomination. I just sold these women to you into slavery, but I don't agree with what you're doing to them at all.
I was talking about Egwene's escape.
I was talking about Leandra.
Like, okay.
Oh, and Egwene's escape. Like, okay, we all saw that coming. That was all on our bingo card. Like, Egwene's gonna figure herself.
How the hell did Rand kill Ishamael? Like,
because he had to.
There's like, okay, so that's all. No, if it's just like, just stab him. Okay,
and he's gonna clutch. He's going to clutch the sword blade so he can get his brand on his palm. That's why.
And now he doesn't have the sword. So what are they going to do about the sword of what is it? Kaladin. The whatever.
Calendar?
You know what I mean? Yeah. Yes. Thank you.
Oh wait.
Calendar.
We haven't discussed this yet. Amber, are you clear about what a Saidin versus an Angreal or a Ter'angreal actually does?
Should
we leave it off here and basically like let's blow her or not blow her mind about this, but like can we explain this to you because we're like giddy to, and like maybe we'll end the stream on this.
It's your guys' call. I'm up for whatever.
All right. A Saidin is not a one-time magic use item that disappears after it's used, like it was.
Saidin?
Yeah. Okay. So a Ter'angreal has a specific function. It'll do something. Sometimes you need to channel to activate it, but there are Ter'angreal that are like they don't just need activate the one power.
But they activate in the presence of a channeler, right?
Not necessarily. Even.
Okay.
Some of them are constantly active. Like it doesn't require the one power whatsoever. Like it's
that's a thing that I think I'm getting from the show. Like I can't remember where I heard it. Was it in the show or was it in the book? Like you have to channel to open it or to do something with it, or sometimes they activate just in the presence of a person who can channel. So that's not a thing.
That can happen.
Yeah. That can happen.
That's why it's dangerous to study them.
Yeah, Ter'angreal is basically it's just something that was made for a purpose. It could be any number of purposes, and there could be any number of triggers.
And I said I don't remember what most of them are, so that's why it's dangerous. They don't know what the triggers are to set them off or anything like that. So yeah, that is true. Like just channeling.
If they use Saidin or Saidar, like there could be a difference there. But there's so many more Ter'angreal than there are Angreal or Saidin.
Okay, so Ter'angreal have a specific purpose, right? And they are okay. And then Saidin. What, they're just amplifiers?
Yeah, that's the best way to think about it.
Yeah.
So, because channeling is like electric current or whatever. Your initial ability to access the one power and the amount of, I don't know if it's like amperes or voltage or what's the proper kind of term, but it's like if I'm power level 25, like I've got a narrow aperture, and this is how much of the infinite one power, the infinite source that I can channel through me, and this is my power. But if I have an Angreal, I can get a bigger aperture. I can do more with it. So more of the one power can flow through me with this. And similarly with linking, what Kenny was saying, the women can link with Saidar, but if you add men to the circle, you can get even bigger links because then you can add more women. And like the biggest, is 72 the ultimate limit? Yeah. So 72 is the ultimate limit of a circle. and if there was an even number of men and women, it would be the most powerful. And that circle is bringing in both Saidin and Saidar. But in this vein, an Ter'angreal allows a single channeler, whether male or female, to handle more of the one power than they're otherwise able to do on their own. And the best kind of...
Wait, this is an Ter'angreal.
Ter'angreal. So Moraine has one of these devices, her ivory sculpture at the start of the Eye of the World.
Okay.
And the best way that I can distinguish between an Ter'angreal and a Ter'angreal is in terms of power scaling, in that an Ter'angreal can kind of bring a mid-level channeler to the top tier. Okay. But a Ter'angreal is an order of magnitude above that, where and it gets revealed later, but you've already been introduced to the Choden Call with what Lanfear is saying, but hopefully you recall from the chapter in Tremoncian when Rand is going down with Selene and Loyal and Huron, and he sees that sculpture with the big orb.
Oh, and he's like entranced by it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rand also calls back to, like, it was mentioned to him by Baal Doman that there's a hand with a globe on an island somewhere. It's also like, so that's a big hint that this, and Lanfear says, like, when Lanfear's talking to Rand early on in the Stone of Tyr in the Shadow Rising, that it's a Ter'angreal. Maybe they don't say it's called the Choden Call, but it's the two most powerful Ter'angreal ever made. But in essence, this is like an anime style ultimate magic weapon within the series. But a Ter'angreal is capable of allowing an individual to channel more than everyone put together on the planet.
Okay. All right. So
a Ter'angreal is basically off the charts, exponential scale, like super powerful. An Ter'angreal is something that could bring like a mid-level channeler to the top level, and the top level channeler to like a super powerful level, but not like beyond the scale of a full circle of 72 channelers.
You're getting way too in the weeds here, Dain.
Yeah, I know.
It's just Ter'angreal is powerful, Ter'angreal is super powerful. That's all it is.
Okay.
But super duper.
Well, yeah, it's we don't need to get into that. It's just it makes you more powerful.
So is Moraine not actually a super awesome channeler?
Well, no, she is. It's just that she's got a thing that makes her even more powerful than other people would be.
Okay.
She's strong based on how weak the Aes Sedai are now, but she's not, in the grand scheme of things, she's not all that impressive.
Okay, but the Ter'angreal that she carries with her does help her have more power.
Right.
Yeah, it could put her decently powerful. Like
who gave that to
more?
They just kind of have them. Like
Amber Sword.
No, it's not like Aes Sedai have them. The tower has them. She can theoretically access it from the tower.
I have to nerd out for a little second here. Oh God, where did
I? Actually,
no, Amber's got a sword, but I got a sword. Oh, shit.
Oh, that's what fell. My sword fell. I was like, something happened. I didn't know what it was. I've got a small collection of swords. No, I'm not a sword collector except for fencing swords that I actually use in tournaments. So I got these for my stream. Or not my stream, my channel.
Don't worry about it, Amber. However big of a nerd you are, I'm a bigger one because I have the Heron Mark.
The Heron Mark sword.
There you go.
Nice.
Just had to show that one off.
I might have to get winding down here, guys.
Yeah, we've been on for 2.5 hours. I think it's.
Oh God, that's short for a book club stream. To be fair, but Amber, thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you guys.
Probably going to be our most popular stream, especially on rewatches. I know that the chat has been. What have they been saying? Moraine is a very competent middleweight. She's not a heavy. Okay. Yep. Nope. She's not that big. What is the sword? Yeah, that was Amber Sword Aldan, but maybe you know, but like I got the Windlass Cutlass Herodmark. Yeah, I'm all right. Most embarrassing story ever. When I announced at work that I had spent $300 on this sword, my associate basically said, "Ha! Did you fight any girls off with it yet?"
Oh.
And I was like, "No."
That's rough.
Anyways, that was years ago. Chat, thanks so much for coming out. I see. Who do we still have 37 people watching. I can't believe you guys.
Pretty good.
Janen's still here. Trip is still yelling at me. Yep, that one hasn't changed. Yeah, okay, I guess that's probably right. But
you're just passionate about the material.
No, yeah, kind of, sort of. But guys, hopefully we've helped Amber out in understanding the lore of the show, not the show, the lore of the books, and how badly the show has done it. She's probably going to have follow-up questions, so I'm kind of semi-excited, being like, all right, we'll have a follow-up stream like someday.
You guys should. I'll come and do the rewatches you guys do. I can do that, and then like when the questions come up, I can just be like, what the hell is this?
And we got Sneed so drunk on his rewatch.
Oh God!
Like his brother, and it was on Coors Light too. Like
I drank like a 24-pack though. It was so fucking trashed. Oh my God!
There's only one way to do a rewatch, and that is to get completely smashed, unless like you're a Mormon, and we've had a few of those, or Prophet of the Dragon, who doesn't drink either. But like
I don't drink either. But somebody could drink for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to, because that's what I was doing the other ones. So if you want to
I could do push-ups or something until my arms want to fall off.
No, that's not the same. It's not a coping
mechanism. It definitely isn't. But
all right, so Amber's committed, sadly, to her rewatch. This is gonna suck so much for her. So much for me if I have to do 2 drinks instead of 1. Actually, no, it doesn't suck too much. I'll probably do it.
The show has made me numb.
No, it hasn't.
And my episode 5 review is so boring. When I say it's boring, I mean I couldn't even make it funny. Like I couldn't even find anything to laugh at because I just didn't care. I was like, it's actually a decent-ish episode. Obviously, there were problems. There were things that I could see are going to be consequences later on, but at least the scenes made sense. And I'm going, oh, at least everybody's doing something. Like, and the pointless characters that aren't doing stuff, they're not in here. So everybody's doing things. So I'm happy with that. And I'm like, but I still don't care because they have destroyed these characters so much that by the time I get to an episode that's actually decent, I don't give a shit. I just don't. I was so bored. Sorry.
Guys, I know that I said this in the lounge kind of before we started, but Amber's been helping me out with my story. So I've contracted Amber to be like kind of my developmental editor for my own book, which is like 300,000 words long. It's super long. She's going through it. She's helping a ton in order to narrow it down. But the best thing that I could say about her, and what you can see from her videos and how passionate she is about stories, is essentially she's not there to critique only. Her mindset is basically, if there's a flaw, she wants to come up with ways to fix it, which has been so helpful for me because she's been able to point out flaws in my story or problems and then provide suggestions to fix it. But when she's going through Amazon's Wheel of Prime, especially when she kind of sees where it was based off of and how it worked as well, I can feel the pain in what you're saying, Amber, is basically like, you want to fix it, but it's not fixable at this point.
Yeah.
So you're getting to the point in your reviews where it's just like you feel dead inside because what you're really passionate about is not pointing out problems. You're passionate about fixing problems at the early stage before they become visible or what. You want good stories, and bless you because you're helping me out on mine, and it's freaking awesome. And to a certain point, I feel bad because I enjoy the masochism that you go through with these Wheel of Time reviews, but if you don't feel like doing them, yeah, at a certain point, we should recognize that what your motivations are is like, yeah, you're trying to fix things, and if something's unfixable, why are you even looking at it? As sad as that is, I really hope you don't like dive into season 3 if all it's going to be is basically just pointing out the flaws, because there are plenty of idiots out there like us who can do that. I really appreciate your channel and what you do as a developmental editor as being like, find a story and try and make it better. And Wheel of Prime, there's no point trying to make it better at this point. So
it's definitely not easy, for sure. It's at the point where I think I can just make suggestions for how to make a certain moment better. But, you know, I think it was at season 1, episode 4 was the first time I realized it and just said it. It was like, the problem with having a rough start or whatever, or having characters acting illogically, is you don't care. You don't care because you don't believe that these characters got to the points they're at. Like, I didn't care about the romance with Lan and Nynaeve because I didn't believe that they got there. I was like, this is the most forced thing I've ever seen. I like any teenager could have written a romance better than what we saw. It was really sad. So, I mean, I've read better, cheap fan fictions. And so that's why I reenacted my own. Like,
I stopped watching it because I was like, dude, it's just getting worse. There's no point anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I keep watching it because I need an excuse to drink. Actually, I don't. But no, the rewatches are fun, but for different reasons. But guys, Amber, so glad you came out. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope we shed some light on the wonderful world of Robert Jordan's actual books and corrected some of the misconceptions of the show.
Yes.
Before we depart, let me just ask around the table. Kenny, you got anything going on? You're not much of a YouTuber, but no. Are you looking forward to the rewatch? Do you and Steve want to do like a Great Hunt kind of book cloak stream, or what do you hankering to do something?
I'm game to do that if you want to.
Yeah, I'd be cool if you wanted to.
All right, so maybe we'll have to do that. But I think the chat's asking if we do a rewatch next. Amber, what have you got coming up? Do you want to plug the channel?
Yeah, so my channel is the Sword and the Pen Reflections. I've also got one called the Sword and the Pen, but that one's like tiny. Forget about it. But
I'm pretty sure all 42 people watching this right now know you a hell of a lot more than they know us.
Well, I saw somebody was asking, like, what channel does she have? So I typed it in there, and I saw Trip did too. So thank you, Trip. But I'm going to be doing live streams every other Friday. So I just did one this last Friday, and it was about Rings of Power. But this one coming up, so not this Friday, but next Friday. So I don't know what date that is. Let me just double check. It would be the 19th. I want to make it a Wheel of Time one because I know I have a lot of Wheel of Time folks who really want to talk about it a lot. So that will be a Wheel of Time live stream. It's on Fridays at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Did I say 6 p.m.? 5 p.m.? Whatever. Just check my channel. It'll tell you when it is. I can't remember when it is.
All right. And for us, thanks everyone in chat for coming out. I see Aldan is still here. I see this guy named Steve Romo, who I thought we chased. Oh, wait. Fuck. Sorry, Steve. That's you. Stan.
I forgot who he was. No, I still want the videos. I love the editor point of view for future. Oh, I'm not stopping. I will review every episode of Wheel of Time. It's just slower coming out. Apparently I haven't said that in any video officially, but they aren't stopping. I haven't quit Wheel of Time. They're just slower coming out because they take so long.
And you should know that as much as we hate Amazon for basically like they kibosh some of our videos, Alex put out some pretty good, funny, kind of clippy show reviews like as they came out. But Amber, from what I understand, is they like did a number on you as far as the copyright claims that were just absolutely ridiculous. That
I've gone through like 40 edits of a video, and each edit takes several hours to do. Like even just to go in and change something, because then I have to render it again, and then I have to load it onto face or YouTube again, and then it has to be checked again. It takes hours. So I'll spend like 40 hours just trying to get past copyright blocks.
And the process is the punishment, right? And that's what I can't get behind. It's like they know that if you if you took the challenge, if you just said, fuck it, I'm not going to change anything, I'm just going to upload it and I'm going to fight you on it, that itself would take a month or whatever to clear through. And then if you got through the YouTube copyright or whatever, you wouldn't be monetized on it either. So
the risk is if I challenge it and they say no, I could get a permanent strike, and essentially you can only have 3 of those and they shut your channel down. You lose everything. So I'm like, I'm not going to risk that. So I will edit it and edit it and edit it until it's passes. And if
which is what's so nefarious about it, because Amber's trying to be a booktuber and she's trying to kind of grow her audience and her presence. And if I haven't touted her enough, if you're want to write and you need a good developmental editor, right here, she's been helping me out a lot.
My schedule is very tight right now, but if you send me an email, we can talk.
If you're a good writer and you have a good finished product, and she doesn't have to point out your fundamental spelling mistakes, all the better. But that's what pissed me off so much about what they were doing to you, Amber, is essentially the process was the punishment, and you had obviously gotten on somebody's radar precisely because your takes were cutting in on the nose. But Amber, let's show you some support. I think everyone who's a Whitecloaks subscriber is a Sword in the Pen subscriber. We love your reviews. We'd love for you to come back on a rewatch. Hopefully, you don't have to drink on it, but that's how we cope on it. We'll give you your pick of the horrible episode that you want to watch. And if you ever want to dive into kind of more Wheel of Time lore with Pixcalcis, Sneed, or Pips or Alex or anyone else of the Whitecloaks, will make that available to you. But thank you so much for coming out. And I think I should probably do our outro, or do we want to watch that awesome spa commercial again? I think we want to do that.
Up to you guys.
Be born again at the White Cloak with our exclusive signature experience. Start with a full body exfoliation provided by expert estheticians, followed by a luxurious hair combing, deep condition, and blowout, finishing with a delicate manicure and complimentary comfort gown. Come, discover the new you in the way of the light.